They say money shows people's true colors. In my family's case, it revealed secrets that had been buried for decades. I'm Grace Mitchell, and until 6 months ago, I was just the quiet granddaughter who visited Grandma Catherine every weekend. My cousin Jennifer was the successful one, or at least that's what my Aunt Susan never tired of telling everyone. Jennifer's getting another promotion, Aunt Susan would announce at family dinners. She'll be running that investment firm in no time. Meanwhile, I was the family disappointment. After college, instead of taking a high-powered corporate job like Jennifer, I chose to work with special needs children. The pay wasn't great, but I loved making a difference in my students' lives. Such a waste of potential, Aunt Susan would sigh. You could be making 6 figures like Jennifer. What no one knew was that every Saturday, while Jennifer was networking at country clubs, I was sitting with Grandma Catherine, looking through old photo albums and listening to her stories. She had fascinating tales about her life as one of the first female stockbrokers in the 1960s. The men thought they could push me around, she'd chuckle, until I started outperforming them all. Grandma had turned a small inheritance into a fortune through smart investments. Though she lived modestly in the same house she'd bought 50 years ago, only her executor, Mr. Harrison, knew the true extent of her wealth. I loved those Saturday visits. Grandma would make tea in her favorite china cups, and we'd talk about everything: my work with the children, her investments, family history. Sometimes she'd give me advice about money management, teaching me the principles that had made her successful. Remember, Grace, she'd say, true wealth isn't just about money, it's about character. Jennifer visited occasionally, always with Aunt Susan in tow. They'd spend the time talking about Jennifer's latest achievements and hinting about Grandma's inheritance. Mom's getting older, Aunt Susan would say. We should discuss estate planning. Grandma would just smile and change the subject. What they didn't know was that during our Saturday visits, Grandma was quietly testing all of us. She'd leave her expensive jewelry out when Jennifer visited, watching through her security cameras as her successful granddaughter pocketed pieces she thought wouldn't be missed. She noticed how Aunt Susan always tried to get her to sign documents without reading them carefully, just routine updates, she'd say, but Grandma would insist on having Mr. Harrison review everything. And she saw how I never asked for anything, content just to spend time with her, learning from her stories and wisdom. Then came the day we'd all dreaded. Grandma Catherine passed away peacefully in her sleep, leaving behind a legacy none of us fully understood, at least not yet. The family gathered at Mr. Harrison's office for the reading of the will. Aunt Susan arrived in designer clothes, Jennifer in an expensive suit. I wore a simple black dress from my teacher's wardrobe. Before we begin, Mr. Harrison said, Mrs. Mitchell left specific instructions about how this meeting should proceed. Aunt Susan leaned forward eagerly. Yes, let's get to the distribution. I assume the estate will be divided equally? Mr. Harrison adjusted his glasses. Actually, Mrs. Mitchell left most of her estate to a single heir. Well, of course, Aunt Susan smiled. Jennifer is the obvious choice. She's the only one who really understands finance. Mom, Jennifer preened. Grandma knew I could manage the money best. That's when Mr. Harrison dropped the bomb. Mrs. Mitchell left her entire estate, valued at approximately $40 million, to her granddaughter, Grace Mitchell. The room exploded in chaos. Jennifer actually fell out of her chair. Aunt Susan jumped to her feet, face red with fury. This is impossible, she screamed. Grace must have manipulated Mom. She spent all that time with her, poisoning her mind against us. Actually, Mr. Harrison said calmly, Mrs. Mitchell left a letter explaining her decision. She was very specific about when it should be read. He pulled out an envelope and began reading Grandma's words. My dear family. If you're hearing this, then the truth about my estate has just been revealed. I know this may come as a shock to some of you, but my decision was made with great care and consideration. For years, I've watched and tested all of you. I saw how Jennifer stole my jewelry, thinking I wouldn't notice. Yes, dear, those missing pieces are all documented on my security cameras. I saw how Susan tried repeatedly to get me to sign away my assets through routine paperwork that would have left me penniless. And I saw Grace, who never asked for anything except my time and stories, who used what I taught her about investing to start a small scholarship fund for her special needs students, never telling anyone it was her own money making it possible. You see, I didn't build my fortune by being naive. I've had cameras in my house for years. I've kept records of every visit, every conversation, every attempted manipulation. Mr. Harrison has copies of everything. including footage of Jennifer stealing and Susan's attempted fraud. But the final test came 3 months ago. I secretly divided $100,000 between 3 charity accounts, one in each of your names. I wanted to see what you would do with money you thought no one knew about. Jennifer, you immediately transferred your portion to your personal account. Susan, you tried to access Grace's portion using a forged power of attorney. And Grace? She donated her portion to the Children's Hospital, anonymously. You all showed me exactly who you are, Jennifer and Susan. You proved that no amount of money would ever be enough for you. You'd keep taking, keep wanting more, keep trying to manipulate others for personal gain. But Grace proved that she understands what real wealth means, not just having money, but using it to make the world better. She has the character and wisdom to handle this inheritance responsibly. So yes, I'm leaving everything to Grace, and before anyone considers contesting this decision, Mr. Harrison has extensive documentation of everything I've mentioned. Any legal challenge will result in all of this evidence becoming public record. Additionally, I've instructed Mr. Harrison to turn over evidence of Jennifer's thefts and Susan's attempted fraud to the authorities if they attempt to contest the will or harass Grace in any way. Jennifer, Susan, I love you, but I cannot reward your behavior. Perhaps this will be the wake-up call you need to reevaluate your priorities. Grace, I know you'll use this inheritance wisely. You already understand that true wealth lies in how you help others, not in what you own. With love and clear-eyed wisdom, Grandma Catherine. As Mr. Harrison finished reading, Jennifer fainted dead away. Aunt Susan stood frozen, her face ashen as she realized how completely her manipulations had backfired. I sat quietly, tears rolling down my cheeks, missing Grandma more than ever. She'd seen everything, understood everything, and had orchestrated this moment to teach our family a final lesson about character and consequences. Mr. Harrison handed me another envelope, private instructions, he said quietly, to be read when you're alone. Aunt Susan found her voice. This isn't over, we'll contest dash. I wouldn't advise that, Mr. Harrison interrupted. The evidence Mrs. Mitchell gathered is quite extensive. Would you like me to play some of the security footage now? Susan grabbed her still unconscious daughter and fled the office. Later that night, in the privacy of my apartment, I read Grandma's private letter. She'd left detailed instructions about managing the inheritance, along with personal messages about each of her investments, but it was the last paragraph that meant the most. My dearest Grace, you were never the family disappointment, you were the only one who truly understood what matters. Your work with those children, your quiet generosity, your genuine love for others rather than money. You're the granddaughter I'm most proud of. Use this inheritance to continue making the world better, and know that I saw you, understood you, and loved you for exactly who you are. The following weeks were challenging. Aunt Susan and Jennifer tried to spread rumors about me manipulating Grandma, but Mr. Harrison's evidence quickly silenced them. When they realized challenging the will would expose their own misdeeds, they retreated to lick their wounds. I kept my job teaching special needs children, but now I had the resources to do more. I established a foundation in Grandma's name, providing educational opportunities for disadvantaged children. The scholarship fund I'd been running in secret became a major program, helping dozens of students instead of just 2 or 3. Grandma's modest house became a community center, offering after-school programs and support for families with special needs children. The same rooms where she'd taught me about investing now hosted classes teaching financial literacy to kids and young adults. A year has passed since that day in Mr. Harrison's office. The foundation is thriving, touching more lives than I ever imagined possible. Aunt Susan and Jennifer moved to Florida, unable to face the family after the truth came out. Last week, I found another letter from Grandma, hidden in one of her old investment books. If you're reading this, it said, you've started exploring my library. Good. There's so much more for you to learn. Keep studying, keep growing, keep helping others. That's what real wealth is for. I've kept all of Grandma's security footage, not to hold over my aunt and cousin, but to remind myself of the lesson she taught us all. Character reveals itself in actions, not words, and true wealth isn't about how much you have, but how you use it to help others. The china cups we used during our Saturday visits sit in my office now. Sometimes, when I'm reviewing foundation grants or planning new programs, I make tea in them and imagine Grandma sitting across from me, smiling her wise smile. Remember, Grace, I can almost hear her say, money doesn't make you rich, character does. The family dynamics have shifted permanently. Other relatives who once looked down on my career choice now ask for advice about charitable giving and meaningful work. Some have even volunteered at the community center, discovering the joy of helping others. Grandma's final lesson continues to ripple outward, touching lives far beyond our family. The foundation has helped hundreds of children access better educational opportunities. The community center hosts weekly meetings for parents of special needs children, providing support and resources I wish I'd had when I first started teaching. Jennifer recently sent a letter asking to reconcile, claiming she's changed. Maybe she has. Grandma's revelation about the security cameras certainly shocked her into reevaluating her behavior, but trust, like character, has to be earned through actions, not words. Aunt Susan still tells people she was cheated out of her inheritance, but her audience has shrunk considerably. The evidence Grandma gathered made it clear who had really been trying to do the cheating. Mr. Harrison continues to serve as a trusted advisor, helping me navigate the complexities of managing such a large estate while staying true to Grandma's values. Sometimes he shares stories about their long friendship, helping me understand even more about the remarkable woman who saw through everyone's facades to their true character. The investment principles Grandma taught me during those Saturday visits have proven invaluable. The estate has grown under my management, allowing the foundation to help more people every year, but more importantly, I've maintained her emphasis on ethical investing and using wealth responsibly. In the end, Grandma's greatest gift wasn't the money, it was the lesson she taught us all about the true nature of wealth and character. She showed us that what you do when you think no one is watching reveals who you really are. The security cameras that caught Jennifer stealing and Susan scheming still operate in the community center, though now they protect the children and families we serve. Sometimes I look at the monitors and smile, thinking about how Grandma used technology not just for security, but for revealing truth. Her letter, framed in my office, serves as a daily reminder that true wealth isn't measured in dollars but in impact. The money she left me was just a tool, the real inheritance was the wisdom to use it well. And those Saturday visits? They weren't just about keeping an elderly woman company, they were master classes in character, integrity, and the responsibility that comes with privilege, lessons that continue to shape not just my life, but the lives of everyone the foundation touches. Grandma Catherine's legacy lives on, not just in the millions she left behind, but in the wisdom she shared and the values she taught. She proved that sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who sees everything most clearly. And me? I'm still the same person I was before the inheritance, just with better resources to help others. Because that's what Grandma taught me, true character doesn't change with circumstance, it just becomes more visible. The money she left revealed everyone's true colors, but more importantly, it revealed the power of using wealth wisely, of seeing through pretense to character, and of understanding that the richest legacy isn't what you leave behind, but what you teach others about integrity and purpose. Grandma would be proud not of the millions in the foundation's accounts, but of the lives being changed every day through her legacy of wisdom and compassion. In the end, that's worth more than any inheritance.
My name is Lauren, and about a year ago, I married the love of my life, Jerry. Our relationship has been everything I could have ever dreamed of, full of love, support, and laughter. I felt like the luckiest person in the world. I work as an accountant, mostly from home, and I enjoy my job even though there's more to it than people might think. Jerry owns a car parts business, which keeps him busy, but we still find plenty of time to be together. In our free time, we love hanging out, just the two of us. We also enjoy going to parties, especially with Jerry's many friends, colleagues, and business partners. I always look forward to these gatherings because I enjoy being a part of Jerry's world and meeting new people. One sunny Tuesday morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking my coffee and checking my emails. Jerry walked in with a big smile on his face. "Hey, beautiful," he said, giving me a kiss on the cheek. "Larry is having a barbecue at his place. Thought we could go, have some drinks, and catch up with everyone. You up for it?" "Sounds perfect," I replied, already looking forward to the evening. We arrived at Larry's house around 9 p.m. The smell of grilled food and the sound of laughter filled the air. As we made our way through the crowd, I noticed a tall, blonde woman I hadn't seen before. She was laughing loudly and seemed to be the center of attention. I turned to Jerry and asked, "Who's that?" Jerry's face changed just a bit. "That's Maria, my ex-girlfriend," he said. Before I could respond, Larry spotted us and waved us over. "Jerry, Lauren, so glad you could make it. Come meet everyone," he said. As we walked over, Maria's eyes locked onto us. She smiled, but something about it felt off. Well, she said in a sweet yet fake voice. If it isn't Jerry and his wife. The way she said wife made it sound almost like an insult. I tried to stay calm and smiled back. Nice to meet you, Maria, I said, reaching out my hand. I'm Lauren. She glanced at my hand like it was something dirty and turned back to Jerry. Shawnee, darling, it's been too long. You have to tell me everything you've been up to. Her use of Shawnee made me feel uncomfortable, but Jerry quickly replied, Good to see you, Maria. Lauren and I are doing great. How about you? Still working at your dad's company? Maria's smile faded for a moment. Oh, you know me, she said. I like to keep my options open. Unlike some people who seem stuck, the conversation dragged on for what felt like forever. Maria kept making little digs at me while trying to flirt with Jerry. I did my best to stay calm, but inside, I felt a mix of frustration and sadness. I tried my best to stay calm, but by the end of that first night, I was completely exhausted. After that, Maria kept showing up at our social gatherings more and more. Each time, she seemed to go out of her way to make me feel uncomfortable. One Thursday evening, we were at a dinner party hosted by one of Jerry's business partners. I was talking with a few of the wives when Maria strolled over, holding a champagne glass. Oh, Lauren, she said in an overly sweet voice, that's an interesting outfit. I didn't know the librarian look was back in style. I glanced down at my knee-length skirt and blouse, suddenly feeling self-conscious. I think it's appropriate for a dinner party, I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Maria laughed, the sound sharp and cold. Of course you do, sweetie. Not everyone can pull off high fashion like me. I bit my tongue, resisting the urge to point out that her dress looked more suited for a nightclub than a dinner party. Instead, I politely excused myself and went to find Jerry. As the weeks went by, Maria's behavior got worse. She started posting pictures from our gatherings on social media, always making sure to crop me out or hide my face. Her captions were like little insults about my appearance or personality. One day, while scrolling through my feed, I saw a particularly hurtful post. Maria had uploaded a picture of herself next to an unflattering one of me. The caption read, "Who do you think is a better match for Jerry? Vote in the comments." My face grew hot with anger and embarrassment as I read through the comments, most of which favored Maria. At the end of her post, she added, "Looks like the people have spoken. Jerry must be crazy to pick plain Jane over a beauty like me." That evening, when Jerry got home, I decided it was time to talk about Maria. "Jerry, we need to talk about Maria," I said as he walked in the door. He sighed and loosened his tie. "What has she done now?" I showed him the post on my phone, and his face darkened as he scrolled through it. "This is unacceptable," he muttered. "I'll talk to her and tell her to take it down." "That's not enough," I replied, my voice shaking slightly. "I want you to tell her to stay away from us. I don't want her at our parties anymore." I looked at Jerry, feeling hurt and frustrated. He ran a hand through his hair, looking a bit uneasy. "Lauren, I can't just cut Maria off," he said. "She's the daughter of a really important business partner. If I banned her from social events, it could hurt my business relationships. So, what am I supposed to do?" I asked, my voice rising. "Just let her bully me?" "Of course not," Jerry said, pulling me into a hug. "I'll talk to her and make it clear that her behavior isn't okay. But you have to understand, I can't completely cut her off without causing business problems." I pulled away from him, frustration building inside me. "And what about us, Jerry? Doesn't our relationship matter?" "Of course it does," he said, looking hurt. "You know you're the one I love, Lauren. Maria is in the past. I chose you, remember?" His words should have made me feel better, but I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the start of more problems. That night, as I lay in bed, I wondered if our perfect life was beginning to crack. In the weeks that followed, Maria's behavior got worse. Every time we went to a party or gathering, she seemed determined to make me uncomfortable and try to get close to Jerry. She would throw little comments my way or look at Jerry with those longing eyes, and it was starting to get to me. One evening, we went to a cocktail party hosted by one of Jerry's colleagues. I had picked a simple, elegant black dress, feeling both confident and comfortable. But that confidence didn't last long. Maria walked in wearing a tight red dress that was impossible to ignore. Her eyes locked onto Jerry, and she came straight over to us. "Jerry, darling," she purred, ignoring me completely. "You look absolutely stunning tonight." Before we could respond, she placed her hand on Jerry's arm, lightly stroking it. "Care to dance with me? Just for old time's sake?" I felt my blood boil, but Jerry gently pulled his arm away. "Thanks, Maria, but I'm here with my wife. Maybe another time." As we walked away, I felt a small victory, but it didn't last. All night, Maria kept trying to get Jerry alone. She would call him over to talk about business or ask for help with some silly problem. To Jerry's credit, he turned her down each time, making it clear he was there for me. But still, her persistence left me feeling uneasy. It was like she wouldn't give up, and I couldn't help but wonder how long this would go on. Jerry tried to keep me included in conversations and stayed by my side, but the constant attention from Maria was wearing us both down. Over the next few weeks, things didn't improve. Maria's attempts to interfere with our relationship became more frequent and more obvious. She'd leave flirty comments on Jerry's social media, always hinting at their past. At parties, she'd loudly bring up memories of their time together, purposely leaving me out of the conversation. The breaking point came at our friend Jacob's birthday party. Maria arrived late, dressed like she was going to a glamorous event, not a backyard barbecue. As soon as she walked in, she locked eyes with me and smirked. "Oh, Lauren," she called out, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Poor thing. Didn't you get the memo? This isn't a library book club meeting." Laughter spread through the crowd, and I felt my face turn red with embarrassment. Jerry, who had been talking with some colleagues, quickly came to my side. "That's enough, Maria," he said in a low, angry voice. "You need to stop this childish behavior." Maria looked at him with fake innocence, widening her eyes. "Why, Jerry, I'm just trying to help. Someone has to teach your little wife how to dress for these events." Before Jerry could respond, I suddenly felt something cold and wet on my clothes. I looked down to see red wine spreading across the front of my dress. Maria stood in front of me, holding an empty glass and putting on a face of fake regret. "Oh no," she gasped, "how clumsy of me." Though, to be honest, that stain might be an improvement on that outfit. The party went silent, and everyone's eyes were on us. I stood there, feeling humiliated and furious. But as I looked at Maria's smug face, something inside me snapped. "You know what, Maria?" I said, my voice steady and calm. "I'd rather wear this stained dress than spend another minute pretending to be civil with you. Your behavior is pathetic and embarrassing. If you'll excuse me, my husband and I are leaving." I turned to Jerry, who was looking at Maria with a mix of shock and disgust. "Let's go home," I said. As we walked toward the exit, I heard Maria's shrill voice behind us. "Jerry, darling, don't go. Stay, and I'll take good care of you." But Jerry didn't even look back. He put his arm around me and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "The only person I want to be with is my wife. I want my wife to take care of me." "Goodbye, Maria," Jerry said firmly. We drove home in silence, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. Maria had finally shown her true self, and there was no going back. One sunny morning, Jerry came into our bedroom with a serious look on his face. "Lauren, I have to go on a business trip," he said. "It's important for the company, and I'll be gone for about a week." I nodded, feeling a bit uneasy. "When do you leave?" I asked. "Tomorrow morning," he replied. Sorry for the short notice. It came up suddenly. I forced a smile and said, "It's fine. I understand your business is important." The next day, Jerry left for his trip, and I was alone in the house. The week felt long and quiet, so I kept myself busy with work to pass the time. On Thursday evening, my phone rang unexpectedly. It was Maria. "Lauren, darling," she said in a sugary sweet voice. "I'm organizing a small get-together tonight, just a group of 8. I'd love for you and Jerry to come." I hesitated. "Actually, Jerry's out of town on business," I replied. "Oh, what a shame," Maria said, not sounding disappointed at all. "But you should still come. It would be a great chance for us to bury the hatchet and start fresh. What do you say?" Everything inside me told me to say no, but curiosity got the better of me. I'm not sure, I said, feeling unsure. Oh, come on, Maria pressed. It's at Cottage Inn and Spa. You know the place, right? Very exclusive. It'll be fun, I promise. Hearing Cottage Inn and Spa made me smile a bit. All right, I decided. I'll be there. What time? Wonderful, Maria exclaimed. 9 o'clock, don't be late. At exactly 10 o'clock, I walked into Cottage Inn and Spa. I saw a group of Jerry's friends, 8 people, including Maria, sitting at a table. For a moment, I thought things might actually go well. But as I walked up, my heart sank. There was no place set for me at the table. Maria stood up, her eyes gleaming with a look that wasn't friendly at all. Oh, Lauren, she said loudly, her voice dripping with fake concern. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding. You see, we're full here, no room for extras. She twirled, showing off her designer dress. This is a place for people who belong, Lauren. Beautiful, successful people. Maybe you should try the diner down the street. I hear they make a great hot dog, I said, smiling. The table fell silent. Everyone looked uncomfortable, but no one said a word. I couldn't help but laugh, truly amused by Maria's weak attempt to embarrass me. I turned and called out, "Excuse me, could I speak to the restaurant manager, please?" The manager approached, polite and professional. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, looking between Maria and me. Before Maria could speak, I smiled at him. "No problem at all," I replied. "I was just wondering if I could join this lovely group for dinner." The manager smiled warmly. "Of course, madam. Let me get you a comfortable chair right away." He hurried off, leaving Maria fuming. Her face twisted in anger as she snapped, "Excuse me. I booked this table for 8 people. She wasn't invited, and there's no room for her here." The manager soon returned with a plush chair and placed it at the table. "I apologize for the confusion, but Madam has the right to sit wherever she wishes. After all, she's the owner of Cottage Inn and Spa." A gasp went around the table. Maria's mouth opened and closed, utterly shocked, while Jerry's friends stared at me in disbelief. Jacob, one of Jerry's friends, finally spoke up. "But Lauren, I thought you were an accountant. That's how Jerry introduced you to us." I smiled and shrugged. "I am an accountant. I handle the books for my restaurant. I don't usually talk about my wealth. I prefer to judge people by their character, not by their bank accounts." Maria's face turned bright red with a mix of embarrassment and anger. The mood at the table quickly shifted. Jerry's friends, who had stayed silent earlier, now eagerly invited me to join them. "Lauren, please sit with us. We'd love to hear more about your restaurant." "I can't believe we didn't know this about you," one of them said. I raised a hand, smiling gently. "Thank you all, but I think I'll pass. I just wanted to stop by and say hello." Turning to the manager, I added, "Please make sure my husband's friends are well taken care of. The bill is on me tonight." As I prepared to leave, I looked at Maria and said, "And Maria, there's a lovely diner down the street. I hear they do a great hot dog. You might want to try it sometime." With that, I walked out of the restaurant, leaving behind stunned silence and a very embarrassed Maria. When Jerry returned from his business trip a few days later, I told him the whole story over dinner. "You should have seen her face, Jerry," I said, laughing. "I don't think I've ever seen anyone turn that red." Jerry shook his head, chuckling. "I can't believe she thought she could embarrass you like that." "You handled it perfectly, Lauren," Jerry said, laughing. As we finished our meal, we both knew that Maria's little games were finally over. I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. Maria's attempt to humiliate me had completely backfired, and it had brought Jerry and me even closer. Several weeks passed after the incident at Cottage Inn and Spa, and life settled into a nice, comfortable routine. The memory of Maria's embarrassment became a funny story Jerry and I occasionally joked about over dinner. One morning, while checking my emails, I noticed something exciting. A message inviting me to participate in the prestigious Entrepreneur of the Year award program, specifically for successful new businesses. My heart raced as I read the details. This was a big recognition for all the hard work I had put into my restaurant. Jerry and I decided to attend the event together. On the night of the awards, we dressed up. Jerry looked sharp in his tuxedo, and I chose a simple, elegant gown that made me feel confident and strong. The venue was stunning, filled with the city's most successful and influential people. We mingled, seeing familiar faces, friends, acquaintances, and many of Jerry's business associates. The room buzzed with excitement. At one point, Jerry excused himself to chat with some colleagues, leaving me by the champagne fountain. I was admiring a beautiful ice sculpture when I heard a familiar voice whisper in my ear, "What are you doing here?" I turned to see Maria glaring at me, her face twisted with anger. "I was invited," I replied calmly, showing her my invitation. Maria's eyes narrowed. "This event is for the rich and successful people of the city. People like me and my father. You don't belong here. Leave before you embarrass yourself." I stayed calm, scanning the room until I spotted who I was looking for. With a smile, I waved to 3 distinguished older gentlemen in fine suits who were talking nearby. As they walked over, Maria kept ranting, but I ignored her, focusing on the men. When they reached us, I warmly embraced one of them. "Dad, I'm so glad you could make it," I said, kissing his cheek. Then I turned to the other man and extended my hand, which he shook warmly. "Mr. Bryan, it's great to see you again." Maria's jaw dropped as she realized who they were. Her voice rose in disbelief. "Daddy, what are you doing? How can you be friendly with her? She's just an accountant who got lucky." The men exchanged glances and chuckled, leaving Maria speechless. Her reaction was priceless, and I knew I had truly proven her wrong. "She doesn't belong here," Maria snapped, her voice full of anger. Mr. Bryan's face turned bright red as he listened to his daughter's outburst. His usually calm eyes were now blazing with anger. "Enough," he thundered, making Maria flinch. He gestured toward my father and said, "This man is Tommy Shelby, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country and my trusted business partner. Your ignorant words could ruin a multi-million-dollar deal." Maria's eyes widened in shock, but instead of backing down, she sneered, "Then cancel the deal, Daddy. We don't need to do business with her family. They're beneath us." Mr. Bryan's face grew even redder, and his voice rose, drawing attention from everyone in the ballroom. "That's enough. Your behavior is unacceptable." He pointed a finger at Maria. "From this moment, you're cut off. No more allowance, no more credit cards, and you can consider yourself evicted from that fancy apartment you love so much." Maria's mouth dropped open in disbelief. Mr. Bryan turned to me and my father, his tone soft and apologetic. "Mr. Shelby, Lauren, please accept my deepest apologies for this awful scene." Then he turned back to Maria and said firmly, "Leave now. You've shown you don't deserve to be here." At that moment, Jerry pushed through the crowd, his face full of concern and frustration. "What's going on?" he demanded, then, catching sight of Maria, he shook his head in disgust. "I should have known. Now I remember why I broke up with you, Maria. You never learned how to treat people." Maria's tough front finally crumbled. Tears started streaming down her face, smudging her mascara. "Daddy, please," she sobbed, reaching for Mr. Bryan's arm. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. Please don't do this." But Mr. Bryan pulled his arm away. "I have business to discuss with my partners," he said coldly, turning his back on her. "Goodbye, Maria." As Mr. Bryan walked away with my father, Maria was left standing alone in the middle of the ballroom, crying, her mascara streaking her cheeks. The crowd around us slowly drifted away, leaving her isolated and humiliated. The rest of the evening felt like a blur, but when it was time for the award ceremony, I found myself walking onto the stage in a daze as they called my name for the Successful Entrepreneurial Debut category. I accepted the award with gratitude, feeling proud of everything I had accomplished. Looking out into the crowd, I saw Jerry smiling proudly and my father nodding with pride. Maria's attempts to bring me down had only shown everyone who she truly was, while I stood there, stronger and happier than ever. I spotted my father and Jerry in the audience. They were standing, clapping wildly, their faces glowing with pride. Seeing their excitement filled me with a wave of joy and accomplishment. In the weeks after the ceremony, life settled into a new, pleasant routine. The Golden Award statue sat on our mantel, quietly reminding us of that special night. Jerry and I continued attending parties with his friends and business associates, and without Maria's toxic presence, these gatherings became so much more enjoyable. The atmosphere felt lighter, the conversations were more genuine, and laughter was much more frequent. One evening, as we were getting ready for another social event, Jerry came up behind me as I was putting on my earrings. Wrapping his arms around my waist, he said, "You know, I've noticed how much more fun these parties are lately." I smiled at him in the mirror. I was just thinking the same thing. It's amazing how one person's absence can change everything. Jerry nodded thoughtfully. Speaking of absence, have you heard anything about Maria lately? I shook my head. Not really. She seems to have completely disappeared. Although, I did overhear Jacob talking to his wife at the last party. There's a rumor that Mr. Bryan sent her to another state. Something about not wanting her to embarrass him or the family business anymore. Jerry raised an eyebrow. Wow, that's pretty drastic. But I'm not surprised after how she acted at the award ceremony. I turned to face him, adjusting his tie. It's a shame, really. She had so much privilege, but never learned to appreciate it or use it wisely. As we drove to the party, I thought about how much my life had changed over the past year. From dealing with Maria's drama to receiving recognition for my business, it had been a whirlwind. Yet, through it all, my relationship with Jerry had only grown stronger. As for Maria, I genuinely hoped she'd find her way. Everyone deserves a chance to grow and become better. Maybe her fresh start in a new state would be exactly what she needed. For now, though, I was happy to enjoy the moment, swaying in my husband's arms, surrounded by friends, and feeling grateful for the life we had built together. When I asked Adam why he made a family card for his parents, he laughed and said, "They're my family, so they should have one, right?"
Got a problem with that.
Then he added, "If you knew who helped you when you were alone, you wouldn't talk like this, would you?" His confident tone surprised me. Was Adam always like this? He said, "If you're grateful, you should do more for my family. Then you'll really be part of it. Until then, it's like you're on a trial." A trial? In marriage? I'd never heard of such a thing before. Adam explained further, "It means you're not fully part of the family yet. If you don't like it, you can leave anytime. For now, our family is just the 6 of us." I was shocked. I didn't even know what to say. So, I canceled our shared credit cards and moved out immediately. Hi, I'm Christina Perry, and I'm 31 years old. I draw pictures for a living as a freelance artist working from home. Before this, I used to work at a big advertising company, but I started freelancing about 4 years ago, right after I got married. My parents passed away in a car accident when I was little, so I was raised by my grandparents. When I went to college, I moved back to my parents' old house in the city center, and I've been living there ever since. I met my husband, Adam, at a French restaurant where he worked. It was a cozy place with good food at reasonable prices, so my coworkers and I used to go there a lot. Adam, the charming waiter, caught everyone's attention, including mine. He was definitely a good-looking guy with a cool vibe that stood out. Even the manager joked that some customers came just to see him, and honestly, I understood why. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't a little starstruck myself. Adam and I got close pretty quickly, and before long, people started calling us a couple. Somehow, we ended up getting married. Looking back, I can hardly remember that time. It feels like a blur. One moment I was dating him, and the next I was his wife. But I did love Adam, and I was truly happy to marry him. After the wedding, I left my job at the design company on good terms and started freelancing. Adam kept working at the restaurant, with long and irregular hours, often late into the night. Balancing work and life became hard, so I decided to go solo in my career. That's where things started to change. I'd always wanted to work for myself, so when I told Adam my plan, he said, "That sounds smart, Christina. It'll be easier for you, and it's great that you're doing what you love." He fully supported me, and that's how we started our married life. We weren't into big, fancy celebrations, so we skipped the whole wedding fuss and just signed the marriage papers. Our families met briefly, and that was it. Adam went to work at the restaurant, and I stayed home, managing chores and freelancing. Our schedules were all over the place, but we made it a point to have meals together whenever we could. It was a simple life, but it made us happy. I thought, yeah, marriage is pretty great. About a year later, things started to change. My family wants to visit. Is that okay? Adam asked one day. Sure, I replied. I was actually excited. I'd only met Adam's family briefly before, so I thought this would be a great chance to bond with them. Losing my parents when I was young made me admire the idea of a big family, and Adam's family seemed close-knit. But when they arrived, 5 of them, I was completely caught off guard. Which room is mine? His sister asked the moment she stepped inside. She's 35, 2 years older than both Adam and me, and works at a local store. Her bluntness surprised me, because she didn't seem this way when we first met. Adam's 23-year-old sister came too, but she stayed quiet, barely saying a word, just like when I met her before. Following their lead, I showed them to the guest room, and I gave Adam's parents my old room, the only one with a Japanese-style setup.
I thought it would suit them best.
Once everyone settled in, Adam's older sister suddenly said, "Well, since we're all living together now, you better start treating our family right." I was confused. What did she mean by that? When I looked at Adam, hoping he'd explain, he just laughed in a way I'd never heard before. "They gave up their place and moved in here without telling you," he finally said. "Sorry, but our family home had to be vacated quickly, and they had nowhere else to go." I couldn't believe it. Why hadn't Adam told me? I thought they were just visiting for a day or two, not moving in permanently. From the moment they moved in, his family made no effort to adjust or contribute. They expected me to do everything: cleaning, cooking, managing the house, while they sat around and did nothing. They said whatever they wanted, without caring how it made me feel. Even worse, they didn't try to find jobs or look for their own place. Whenever I brought up the topic of work, they just ignored me or gave vague answers. I got another shock when Adam's sister said, "Oh, I quit that awful job at the supermarket." I thought she had a full-time job, but it turned out she was only working part-time. She admitted she hadn't kept a steady job since high school. Adam's parents were no different. They also quit their part-time jobs before moving in. As for his younger sister, she didn't have a job at all. She claimed to be a student, but that wasn't true. When I asked why she didn't work, she said, "Why should I? I'm part of a well-off family now." Confused, I asked who she meant by well-off. Her response left me speechless. "You, obviously," Adam's sister said with a smirk. "You got a big settlement and insurance payout after your parents' accident, and you don't even have a mortgage on this house. You can live comfortably without working." I felt cornered. When Adam came home, I told him what had happened, hoping he'd understand. But instead, he exploded. "Everyone's exhausted after being forced out of their home. Give them some time to recover. Or, do you want to kick my family out, Christina?" His anger stunned me into silence. Then, just as quickly, his tone softened. "I'm sorry for yelling," he said. "It's been a tough day for me too. Can you please try to be more understanding?" Looking back, I realize Adam was good at manipulating situations by mixing anger with kindness. But at the time, I didn't see it. I agreed to put up with things a little longer. Over time, the situation with his family only got worse. They treated me like a servant, expecting me to handle all the housework. On top of that, they kept asking for money every time they went out. "We can't even look for jobs without some cash," they said. "It's only fair. But if we can't find work, we'll just keep staying here." Reluctantly, I gave them money. They claimed they used it while job hunting, but I doubted they even tried. When I thought about confronting them, I knew it would backfire. They'd blame me, and I'd end up arguing with the entire family for hours. Talking to Adam didn't help either. "They're frustrated about not finding jobs," he said. "Just bear with it a little longer. I'll talk to them." Adam's attempts to smooth things over didn't solve anything, but eventually, their money requests became less frequent. I guessed Adam had spoken to them, so I let it go. Still, the money I had already given them was never returned. Then, after about 3 months of putting up with everything, I noticed something strange. "Why is the credit card bill so high?" I wondered. Could it be unauthorized charges? I quickly checked the statement, and what I saw shocked me. I discovered that all the charges on the credit card were made using family credit cards. The purchases ranged from food and drinks to books, games, and even expensive designer bags and clothes. Each transaction had a number from 1 to 8, which meant 6 family credit cards had been issued. To my shock, these cards were under my name. Adam had issued them without telling me. I remembered him saying, "It seems like you'd handle this better, and it's easier to manage payments, right? Can I leave it to you?" I had agreed to manage the family finances, not realizing he'd use this as an excuse to issue multiple cards. Now I understood why his family had stopped asking for money. They were using the credit cards to pay for everything, and even withdrawing cash. When I confronted Adam, asking why he issued cards for his family without consulting me, he chuckled and said, "Well, you always complain when they say they're broke. What else could I do? And don't forget who supported you when you were alone. Can you really speak like that to the family of your benefactors?" His confident and dismissive tone stunned me. Was this really the Adam I married? "If you're truly grateful, you should do more for my family," he added. "Then I'll accept you as part of the family. Until then, think of this as your trial period." A trial period? In marriage? I'd never heard of such a thing. Adam went on, ignoring my silence. "This means you're not officially part of the family yet. If you're not okay with that, you can leave anytime. Right now, it's just the 5 of us in the family. You'll only belong once you prove yourself useful." That's when I realized Adam's true nature. It felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I was completely stunned and started thinking seriously about divorce. I couldn't help but wonder why I had married Adam in the first place. At first, I was attracted to him simply because of his looks. Like many other women, I was infatuated with his charm and appearance without really knowing him. I remembered the first time Adam approached me. It was at the restaurant where he worked. I had gone to the restroom, and when I came back, he said, "You seem different, Christina. Kind of mysterious." Sorry, I shouldn't say that to a customer. I was caught off guard but intrigued. I started paying more attention to him, and before I knew it, I was falling for his charm. Looking back now, it felt like it was all part of his strategy to win me over. I recalled a moment when a co-worker joked about me being a wealthy lady living alone in a condo. Not long after, Adam started chatting with me more often. Maybe he saw an opportunity. Maybe he was interested in my financial situation and the condo I owned. To be honest, Adam wasn't even my type. I preferred mature men who were calm and serious. Adam was more modern and, to put it bluntly, a bit shallow. Yet somehow, I ended up falling for him anyway. Now, it all felt like a huge mistake. I always found it strange how easily Adam could charm women. He was the typical handsome guy who knew how to say the right things to make someone like me, who is new to the working world and inexperienced with men, fall for him. Looking back, I felt frustrated and ashamed for falling into his trap and marrying him. I wanted to scream, break things, and let out all my anger, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. Instead, I decided to play the long game and get my revenge. To do that, I had to endure this situation for a little longer. Just like Adam manipulated me, I planned to take control of the situation, including his family. The condo we lived in had been bought by my dad with a mortgage shortly after I was born. Back then, it wasn't expensive, but the area developed quickly. With a new shopping center nearby, the condo was now considered a luxury residence. My parents had hoped for more children, so they bought a spacious place. That's why there was enough room even after Adam's entire family moved in. But despite its size, having his family around made life unbearable for me, especially since I worked from home. I only put up with it because I had a plan. Adam's sister was right about one thing. There was no mortgage on the condo anymore. When I was 4, both my parents died in a tragic car accident. They were on their way back from my paternal grandfather's funeral when their car was hit by a speeding vehicle on the highway. I was supposed to go with them that day, but I stayed home because I had the flu and a high fever. My maternal grandparents came to take care of me at our condo, which is why I survived. The mortgage was paid off through credit life insurance after my parents passed, leaving me with just the property taxes and management fees to handle. When Adam saw how little the monthly costs were, he suggested something. Since there's no mortgage, I'll contribute just a bit more than what you're paying for taxes and fees. That should cover our household expenses with your income, right? Then we can each use our own earnings for personal stuff. Sounds fair, doesn't it? He said. At the time, I agreed. I thought he had a point, and I was hopeful that his contribution would ease some of my financial burden. Up until then, I had been paying for everything on my own. But looking back, I realized how naive I had been. Adam's plan wasn't to help. It was just another way to take advantage of me. I was blinded by my love for Adam and went along with everything he suggested without questioning it. Adam probably saw himself as the head of the household, the one supporting me, which is why he felt comfortable calling me a parasite. But the truth was very different. I was the one paying most of the bills: utilities, groceries, social outings, and entertainment. Now, with 6 extra people living in the house, managing everything on my income alone was becoming impossible. I wanted to escape this burden as soon as I could, but I pretended not to notice and kept enduring it, clenching my teeth. I watched Adam's family go on shopping sprees without a care, reminding myself that I'd get the last laugh. Finally, after 4 months of planning my escape, the time to act arrived. I'm done. It's time to choose. It's either me or your family, I told Adam firmly, giving him an ultimatum. He looked shocked, but I didn't stop. None of your family members do anything to help around the house. They dump all their chores on me, knowing I work from home. I'm not sitting around doing nothing, yet they treat me like a freeloader and insult me, claiming you're the one supporting me. I've had enough, I said, my voice shaking with anger. Adam smirked and replied coldly, then you should leave. Didn't I tell you before? You're not truly part of this family yet. Giving up now just proves you haven't earned your place. I stared at him in disbelief, pretending to be shocked. What's surprising about this? He said. If you can't tolerate my family, then you're the one who has to go. And since it's not my fault, I'll take this condo as alimony and claim half of your savings as part of the property settlement. At that moment, it all clicked. This had been his plan all along. That's why his family had been making my life miserable, trying to drive me out. I had suspected it before, but hearing him say it so plainly still hurt. This was the man I had once loved and married. But thanks to this revelation, I was finally sure about what I had to do. Fine, I said calmly. I'll divorce you. But let me make this clear. This condo belongs to me, and I'm not at fault here. Adam looked startled. What did you say? He asked. The reason for the divorce is your family moving in without my consent and the way they've disrespected me, I said firmly. Adam seemed shocked by my refusal to accept his terms. He hadn't expected me to stand up for myself. Since we got married, I had always given in to Adam's demands. Thinking back on those moments made me angry. I had had enough. I can't stand another moment with you or your family, so I'll leave now. But you all better be ready to move out too, I told him firmly. Adam shouted, "This is ridiculous. This is our home, and we're not leaving. Ever heard of tenant rights? You can't just evict us from our own house." Ignoring his protests, I packed up and left the condo. I went to my grandparents' house for refuge and told them everything. They were shocked by what I had been through and scolded me for not coming to them sooner. With tears in their eyes, they hugged me tightly. "I'm so sorry, Grandma, Grandpa. I know I made you worry, but I'll be okay now," I said, forcing a smile through my own tears. The day after I left, Adam contacted me in a panic. "What's this about? What mail are you talking about?" he asked, referring to the certified letter I'd sent. I felt relieved that things were moving so quickly. I had already hired a lawyer to handle the divorce, and as soon as I told them I had left the condo, they started the legal process right away. "I'm not paying any alimony, and I'm not leaving the condo," Adam said confidently. But legally, he was obligated to pay, and he had no right to stay in the apartment. "What do you mean?" he continued. "The condo is jointly owned since we're married. If that's your stance, then compensate me for half its value to buy out my share," he demanded, making an absurd claim. I kept my cool and replied firmly, "If you have anything to say, communicate through my lawyer from now on." Then I ended the call. I figured Adam would call again, and as expected, He did the very next morning. "What's this all about?" he repeated, clearly lacking anything new to say. "What mail are you referring to? And why aren't the cards working? What did you do?" I calmly explained. "What I did was cancel the card. That card was in my name, and you were just an authorized user on the family account. Remember? Before leaving the condo, I had moved all the accounts linked to that card onto a new one and canceled the old card. Naturally, when I canceled mine, the family card stopped working too. I was the one covering all the expenses," I said. "Yes, you paid for the management fees and property taxes for the first 5 months, but that's it. It's not much, but if you prefer, I can deduct it from the alimony you owe," I added mockingly. Adam had no response. For the first time, I felt like I had the upper hand. I heard muffled shouting on the other end of the line. That's right, Adam had only paid the agreed amount for the first 5 months. After that, he came up with excuses about work and other things to delay payment. Then he just stopped paying altogether. If he thought he was still contributing, it showed just how forgetful he was, but I didn't care anymore. I was done with him, and his actions no longer mattered to me. "That's the situation," I said calmly. "So, please reimburse your share of the living expenses I've been covering. I've kept detailed records of all household expenses, and I'll use them as evidence to split our finances fairly." "It's marital property," he argued. "Yes, I understand. Let's divide it properly," I agreed. Before hanging up, he reminded me not to forget about it. A few days later, Adam called again, asking the same question. I realized not only was he forgetful, but he also couldn't seem to come up with anything new to say. "What do you mean the shared property division is 0? He demanded. "You must be swimming in money from your parents' insurance and alimony." So that's what he and his family assumed. I calmly explained, "My savings from before the marriage aren't part of shared property. And since we didn't save anything during the marriage, the shared amount is naturally 0. If you think I'm lying, feel free to check with a lawyer. From now on, please communicate through my attorney. I won't talk to you directly anymore.
Goodbye."
I hung up, blocked his number, and felt a wave of relief. A month after I left, Adam and his family finally moved out of the condo. Not because they had a change of heart, but because they couldn't keep up their lifestyle without my money. Adam's income alone wasn't enough to support a family of 5 who had grown used to spending lavishly with my credit card. Tightening their belts wasn't an option for them. I had allowed them to use the card, knowing it would eventually lead to this outcome. When Adam's family ran out of money, they started demanding shopping funds from him. When he refused, they began stealing from his wallet. Even as he got angry, they blamed him for my leaving. To make things worse, the utilities, electricity, gas, and water were all disconnected. I had arranged for this since the condo was in my name, and I had no intention of returning. Adam tried to get the utilities restored, but since the accounts were under my name, only I could authorize it. Without electricity or water, the sweltering summer heat became unbearable. After weeks of struggling, Adam and his family had no choice but to leave. As they vacated, I couldn't help but feel a sense of closure. They had created their own downfall, and now I was finally free. I didn't know, and I didn't care anymore. Adam tried to hold out until the very end, but without electricity or even the ability to take a bath, he eventually gave up. The divorce moved faster than I expected, not because Adam had a change of heart, but because of his own mistakes. He betrayed our marriage by chasing after someone else, thinking he could easily get rid of me. He bragged about owning a fancy downtown apartment to impress younger women. It was shocking that he acted like this with his family still living in the house, but it wasn't surprising, they just ignored it. Before I left, I had quietly installed cameras in the house. They recorded everything, giving me all the proof I needed. Adam must have underestimated me, but the disrespect he showed was undeniable. He had brought his family into my home without asking, racked up debts on the family credit cards, left me with the bills, and then cheated on me. I demanded substantial compensation and alimony for everything he'd done. When Adam saw the amount, his face went pale, and he begged me to reconcile. But I had no intention of going back. Knowing he couldn't pay, I pushed him to borrow as much money as he could from his workplace and took whatever assets I could. When I threatened to take legal action for the fraudulent use of the family cards, he finally agreed to my terms. I can only hope he works hard to pay off his debts, but that's no longer my concern. The divorce is now final, and I'm staying at my grandparents' home. I haven't decided what to do with the condo yet. It holds sentimental value because it was my parents' home, but after everything that happened, it no longer feels like a place I want to live. I might sell it. As for my career, things are going really well. My work as an illustrator is thriving, and I'll probably move out and live on my own again soon. But for now, I'm happy working for my grandparents' house and leaning on their support for a little longer. Moving forward, I'll be more careful when choosing a partner. I won't let looks cloud my judgment again. My hope is to find someone who values respect, kindness, and honesty, a true partner to share life with. I never imagined a vintage scarf would change my life, but that's exactly what happened last spring at Second Chance Thrift Store. My name is Bianca, and I probably spend way too much time looking for hidden fashion treasures in racks of old clothes. But that Tuesday was different. I had just spotted a bright orange box sticking out from under a pile of scarves when another hand reached for it at the same time. "Oh, sorry," a deep voice said with a laugh. "Ladies first." I looked up and met the warmest brown eyes I'd ever seen. The guy was tall, with messy dark hair and a camera hanging around his neck. He had that artsy look that always made my heart flutter. "No, go ahead," I said, trying to sound calm even though my pulse was racing. "I was just being curious." "Actually, I could use your opinion," he said, picking up the box and opening it carefully. Inside was a perfect silk scarf with swirls of blue and gold. "I'm doing a vintage-themed photo shoot tomorrow, but I don't know anything about fashion. Is this something special?" I couldn't hide my excitement. "That's a real Hermes scarf from the 1970s. See the hand-rolled edges and the artist's signature? It's probably worth at least $800. His eyebrows shot up. "And it's priced at $50? How do you know all this?" "I'm kind of a fashion nerd," I admitted with a smile. "I can spot designer pieces from across the room." "I'm Bianca." "Sonny Owen," he said, shaking my hand. "Fashion nerd, meet photography nerd. Would you want to grab a coffee and teach me more about vintage fashion? I could really use your help for this shoot." That's how it all started. The coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into dates, and 4 months later, I was completely in love with Sonny. Everything felt perfect until I met his sister, Rosalie. The first time I met her was at their parents' house for Friday dinner. I had spent hours picking the perfect outfit, a vintage Toledo von Furstenberg wrap dress I'd found for $100. Sonny's parents, Brianna and Francis, were warm and kind, but Rosalie's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, how creative of you to wear second-hand clothes," she said, sipping her wine. "I could never."
Who knows where they've been?
"Rosalie," Brianna said, her tone warning. Rosalie just shrugged. "I'm just saying, if you're going to be part of the Owen family, you might want to upgrade your wardrobe. We have certain standards to maintain." I felt my face go hot as Sonny gave my hand a quick squeeze under the table. "Actually, Bianca has an amazing talent for fashion," he said. "She's helping style my upcoming magazine shoot." "Really?" Rosalie's perfectly shaped eyebrows lifted. "How interesting. I just got engaged to Paul Will. Of Will Industries, of course. We're planning the wedding of the season." Something about her tone made me uneasy, but I tried to shake it off. This was Sonny's sister, after all. I needed to make a good impression. Later that night, as Sonny drove me home, I noticed him glancing at me, looking concerned. "I'm sorry about Rosalie," he said. "She can be a lot sometimes." "It's fine," I replied, even though it wasn't. "She's probably just being protective of her family." What I didn't tell him was how Rosalie had been watching me all night, studying everything I said and did. I didn't mention how she'd cornered me in the kitchen, firing off questions about my life, my job, and my future plans. And I definitely didn't tell him about her reaction when I mentioned wanting a small, simple wedding someday, the way she smiled, like I'd just handed her some kind of weapon. I didn't realize then that this was just the beginning. Rosalie Owen was about to turn my life into her own personal chess game. Looking back now, I wish I'd seen it coming. Just like vintage treasures, people can have a history, sometimes, one filled with hidden darkness beneath their shiny exterior. The next few weeks were a blur of family dinners and polite, forced smiles. I kept hoping things would get better with Rosalie, but every interaction left me feeling more like an outsider. Tonight was supposed to be different. A casual barbecue at the Owen house to celebrate Sunny's latest magazine cover. I arrived early to help Brianna in the kitchen, wearing a vintage Chanel blazer I'd carefully restored myself. As I chopped vegetables, Brianna touched the fabric of my blazer, smiling warmly. "You have such a gift, Bianca," she said. "The way you bring these old pieces back to life. I hope you know Francis, and I think you're wonderful for Sunny." Before I could respond, Rosalie swept into the room, looking like she'd stepped straight out of a Gucci ad, wearing what seemed to be the entire latest collection. "Mother," she said, her voice sharp, "Paul is bringing his parents tonight. Did you remember the expensive wine I asked for?" "I thought this was just a family dinner," I said, trying to keep my tone light. Rosalie let out a cold laugh. "Oh, didn't Sunny tell you?" I turned it into an engagement celebration. "Paul's father is considering using Sunny's photography for their company's new campaign." She reached out and touched the sleeve of my blazer, her smile as icy as her laugh. "Is this secondhand? How brave of you." I felt my jaw clench, but before I could say anything, Sunny walked in and wrapped his arms around me from behind. "Hey, beautiful. That blazer looks amazing on you." "It should," Rosalie said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "The real thing costs around $20,000. She turned to her mother. "We need to set up the formal dining room instead of eating outside. The Wills aren't exactly the barbecue type." I saw Brianna's face drop. She'd spent the whole day preparing Sunny's favorite grilled dishes. "No one understands how important this is for the family, don't you?" Rosalie said sweetly, but her sharp eyes were locked on Sunny. "Maybe we can do both." Sunny offered, his tone uncertain. "Set up inside, but still keep some food on the grill." I felt my heart sink as Brianna quietly started moving the dishes indoors. This was supposed to be Sunny's celebration, but once again, Rosalie had taken over, just like she seemed to be doing with every other part of our lives. During dinner, I ended up sitting between Paul's mother, who kept asking if my blazer was some sort of costume, and Rosalie, who didn't miss a chance to brag about the high-end designer boutiques she was considering for her wedding dress. "Of course, Bianca probably has some creative ideas for her own wedding," Rosalie suddenly said, turning to me with a fake smile. "What were you thinking? Something vintage, I assume?" The table went quiet. Sunny and I hadn't even talked about marriage yet. I felt my face heat up as everyone waited for me to answer. "I haven't really." "Oh, that's right," Rosalie cut me off. "You haven't set a date yet. Or even gotten engaged." She reached over and patted my hand. "Don't worry. When it happens, I'll help you plan everything. I'll have plenty of experience after my wedding." Francis cleared his throat, clearly uncomfortable. "Rosalie, maybe we could focus on celebrating Sunny's success tonight." "Of course, Daddy." Rosalie raised her glass with a smile. "To Sunny's success. And to family." Later, as the guests were leaving, I overheard Rosalie talking to Paul in the hallway. "Poor thing," she said, her voice low but sharp. "She tries so hard to fit in, but you can't buy class, can you? I mean, showing up in second-hand clothes to meet your parents." "She seemed nice enough," Paul replied, his tone polite. "And that blazer was actually quite elegant." "Oh, honey, you're too kind," Rosalie said, laughing lightly. "But trust me, she's not Owen material. Sunny will figure that out soon enough." My stomach twisted as I slipped away before they could see me. My hands shook as I gathered my things in the kitchen. I found Francis at the sink, quietly washing dishes. Without looking up, he said softly, "Don't let her get to you." Some people mistake cruelty for sophistication. I nodded, unable to speak past the lump in my throat. As I waited for Sunny to drive me home, I caught my reflection in the window. For the first time, my beloved vintage blazer didn't feel like a statement. It felt like a costume. I started to wonder if loving Sunny was worth the cost of fitting into his world. What I didn't realize then was that Rosalie was far from finished. Her next move would force me to choose between keeping the peace and standing up for myself. The moment everything changed happened at the Owen family lake house. Sonny had proposed the night before, during a beautiful sunset that felt like something out of a dream. I should have known Rosalie wouldn't let me enjoy even a full day of happiness. I was helping Brianna in the kitchen when I realized I'd left my engagement ring upstairs after washing my hands. I went to Sonny's old bedroom to grab it, but as I got closer, I heard Rosalie's voice through the slightly open door. "This timing is perfect," she was saying. "Now I can use all of Bianca's wedding ideas for my own. She'll never suspect I've been collecting them for months." I froze, my hand hovering over the doorknob. "Are you sure that's necessary?" Paul's voice replied, sounding hesitant. "Your brother just got engaged." "Oh, please," Rosalie said with a dismissive laugh. "Their wedding is going to be some quirky vintage affair. I'm doing everyone a favor by turning her ideas into something actually sophisticated. Besides, Sonny's told me everything. Her dress design, the venue she wants, even the antique lace she found for the veil." My stomach twisted. Those were private moments I'd shared with Sonny, dreaming about our future together. He had promised to keep them just between us. "Speaking of which," Rosalie added, "I already called her dream venue and booked it for the weekend before their date. The deposit cleared this morning." "Won't that seem a little obvious?" Paul asked, sounding uncomfortable. "That's the best part," Rosalie said smugly. "She'll look crazy if she accuses me of copying her. Everyone will think she's the one trying to steal ideas from me." I must have made a noise because the conversation suddenly stopped. Heart pounding, I turned and hurried back downstairs, gripping the railing tightly to steady myself. In the kitchen, Sonny was helping his mom toss a salad. He smiled when he saw me, but his smile quickly faded when he noticed the look on my face. "Hey, what's wrong?" he asked, concern in his voice. "Can we talk?" I said, my voice shaking despite my effort to sound calm. Privately, out on the deck, the lake sparkled in the bright summer sun, mocking me with its peaceful beauty. I turned to face Sonny, trying to hold back the storm of emotions building inside me. "Have you been telling Rosalie about our wedding plans?" I asked, my voice tight. "Well, yeah," he said, looking confused. "She's been really interested lately. She said she wants to help. Isn't that a good thing?" I shook my head, my frustration spilling over. "She's planning to steal everything, Sonny." "I just heard her talking to Paul," I said, my voice trembling with anger. "She's already booked our wedding venue. The one I showed you in private." Sonny's face shifted through a series of emotions: surprise, doubt, and then defensiveness.
"Come on," he said.
"That's got to be a misunderstanding."
"Rosalie wouldn't."
"Wouldn't what?" I snapped. "Deliberately try to hurt me? That's all she's done since I met her." The words spilled out before I could stop them. "You're overreacting," he said, using a calm, dismissive tone that made me want to scream. "She's my sister, Bianca. She's just excited about weddings right now." Before I could respond, Rosalie appeared in the doorway, wearing an expression of fake concern that made my skin crawl. "Is everything okay out here?" she asked sweetly. I thought I heard raised voices. "Did you book Spring Arbor of Fredericksburg for your wedding?" Asked her directly. "Oh, that," she said, flashing a bright smile. "Yes, isn't it perfect? I remembered how much you loved it when you mentioned it at dinner last month. I hope you don't mind, great minds think alike, right?" I turned to Sonny, waiting for him to say something, anything to defend me. He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding my eyes. "Maybe we could all just," he started. "Just what?" I interrupted, my voice shaking as I slipped off my engagement ring. "Just pretend this isn't happening? Just let her steal every part of our wedding like she's been planning for months." "Bianca, don't be dramatic," Rosalie said, her voice dripping with fake concern. "If you're not ready to plan a wedding, just say so." I placed the ring on the deck railing, my vision blurred with tears. "You're right," I said, my voice breaking. "I'm not ready. Not for this family, not for a husband who won't stand up for me, and definitely not for a sister-in-law who treats my life like it's her personal catalog." As I turned to leave, I heard Sonny call my name, but it was Rosalie's voice that followed me, cold and smug.
"See?
I told you, she wasn't Owen material. I got in my car and drove away, not knowing where I was headed. What I didn't realize then was that this wasn't the end. It was the start of something new, something I hadn't seen coming. 5 days later, while I was at work sorting through vintage dresses, Francis Owen walked into my shop. He looked completely out of place, his expensive suit a sharp contrast to the worn wooden floors and racks of second-hand clothes. "Interesting place you've got here," he said, running his finger along a 1960s Dior dress. "Brianna mentioned you restore these." I nodded, unable to speak. Was Francis here to convince me to come back? To defend Rosalie? "Sonny's been miserable," he said, but his tone wasn't harsh. "Though I suspect that's not entirely because of losing you." "What do you mean?" I asked quietly. "The Wills pulled their advertising campaign," he explained. "Apparently, Paul had concerns about working with our family." He picked up a vintage brooch from the display case, turning it over in his hand. "Rosalie is blaming you, of course." My hands froze on the dress I was mending. I haven't spoken to Paul." "No, but Paul isn't blind or stupid." Francis set the brooch down carefully. "He came by the house yesterday, asking questions about Rosalie's sudden interest in vintage weddings and unique venues." Before I could respond, the shop door chimed. Sonny walked in, stopping short when he saw his father. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "Just leaving, actually," Francis said, squeezing my shoulder as he passed. "Remember what I said about authenticity, Bianca? Some things can't be copied, no matter how hard people try." After he left, Sonny and I stood there in uncomfortable silence. He looked exhausted, his usually neat hair messy, like he'd been running his hands through it. "You left your ring," he said finally. "You left me to face my sister alone." I shook my head, picking up a damaged silk scarf and focusing on its torn edges. "She's been systematically trying to ruin anything good in my life, and you've been letting her. Helping her, even." "She's my sister," he said, sounding defensive. "And I was supposed to be your wife," I said, my voice cracking on the last word. "But you couldn't even tell her to stop when she was stealing our wedding plans?" He sighed and ran a hand through his hair again. "I didn't think." He trailed off, clearly frustrated. "Look, I brought something to show you." He pulled out his phone and handed it to me. It was a series of texts from Rosalie. My stomach twisted as I read them. Detailed questions about my wedding ideas, references to private conversations Sonny and I had shared, and even photos she'd asked him to take of my design sketches.
"See?"
She was just excited about wedding planning, Sonny said, like that explained everything. She wanted to help. I stared at him, the realization hitting me like a cold wave. He truly didn't see what was happening, or worse, he didn't want to. "Your father said Paul pulled the advertising campaign," I said, my voice quiet but firm. I spoke softly, my voice barely steady. "Did you ever stop to wonder why?" Sonny's face darkened with confusion. "Rosalie said you must have said something to Paul." "Of course, she did," I said, letting out a bitter laugh. "And you believed her, just like you always do." The shop door chimed again, and this time it was Paul. He looked uncomfortable but determined. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, glancing between us. "Bianca, could we talk about Rosalie?" Sonny immediately stepped between us. "Whatever she told you about my sister, it's not true." "She hasn't told me anything," Paul cut in, his tone firm. "That's why I'm here. I need to know if I'm making a mistake trusting Rosalie." The irony wasn't lost on me. Rosalie's fiancé coming to me for the truth, while her own brother stood there defending her lies. I turned to Sonny, giving him one last chance. "Do you want to tell him about the texts? About how your sister has been planning to steal my wedding, piece by piece?" Sonny didn't say a word. His silence spoke louder than anything he could have said. I took a deep breath, blinking back tears. "I think you should go," I told him, my voice breaking. "Both of you. Whatever Rosalie is or isn't doing, it's not my problem anymore." As they walked out, I heard Paul ask Sonny, "Did you really not see what she was doing to Bianca?" I didn't hear Sonny's response, but I didn't need to. His silence had already told me everything I needed to know about where his loyalties lay. What I didn't realize was that Paul's visit would set off a chain of events that would change everything, not just for me and Sonny, but for the entire Owen family. 2 weeks later, I received an invitation to Rosalie's wedding. It wasn't just any invitation. It was an exact replica of the custom design I'd sketched in my private journal. The one I'd only ever shown to Sonny. My hands shook as I read the date, 3 weeks before what would have been my wedding day. I was still staring at the invitation when Brianna called. Her voice was strained. "I know this is awkward," she began, "but Rosalie insists you come. She says it would mean so much to her." "I'm sure it would," I said, tracing the delicate pattern I had spent months designing. "Did she tell you where she got the invitation design?" There was a long pause. "Bianca, please," Brianna said softly. "She's trying to make amends by stealing my wedding." The bitterness in my voice surprised even me. "Actually," Brianna hesitated, "that's part of why I'm calling. Rosalie wants you to help with her dress. She says your vintage expertise would be perfect for the alteration she needs." I almost laughed. "What dress?" "The one she found at that little boutique in London," Brianna said softly. "The 1960s Dior you mentioned loving." My stomach dropped. I had told Sonny about that dress during a late-night conversation, describing how I dreamed of recreating it for our wedding. And now Rosalie had somehow tracked down the original. "No," I said firmly. "Bianca, please," Brianna pleaded, her voice cracking. Things are so tense in the family. Francis barely speaks to Sonny, Paul is questioning everything, and Rosalie, she's not herself. "Maybe if you helped, if you showed her some kindness." "Kindness?" I interrupted, my voice rising. "Like the kindness she showed me when she stole every single detail of my wedding? Or the kindness Sonny showed by helping her do it?" Before Brianna could respond, the shop door chimed. Rosalie walked in, wearing a triumphant smile and carrying a garment bag. "I'll call you back," I said quickly, hanging up before Brianna could say anything else. "Surprise," Rosalie sang, laying the bag across my counter. "I need your magic touch with this. It's a bit delicate, and you're the only one I trust." She unzipped the bag, revealing the exact dress I had dreamed of wearing. The ivory silk was as stunning as I had imagined. "How did you find it?" I asked, my voice hollow. "Oh, Sonny mentioned how much you loved it," she said casually, her smile as sweet as poison. "I had my connections track it down." She placed a hand on my arm. "Consider this my olive branch. Help me with the alterations, and maybe we can put all this unpleasantness behind us." I stared at her, and for the first time, I saw everything clearly. This wasn't about a wedding. This was about control, about breaking me, piece by piece. "No," I said quietly. "Excuse me?" she asked, her voice sharp. I said no. I zipped the garment bag closed and pushed it back toward her. "Take your dress and get out of my shop." Her smile vanished. "You're being ridiculous. This is my wedding we're talking about." "No," I said, my voice steady. "This was supposed to be my wedding. My dress, my designs, my dreams. But you couldn't stand that, could you? You had to take everything just to prove you could. You don't deserve any of it." Her expression twisted, the mask slipping. "You're nothing but a second-hand shop girl who got lucky with my brother. I'm doing him a favor by showing him who you really are." "And who are you, Rosalie?" I asked, stepping around the counter, anger giving me strength. "Besides a thief of other people's dreams?" She grabbed the garment bag, her face flushed with fury. "You'll regret this. When I'm done, you won't have anything left. Not your designs, not your reputation, and definitely not my brother." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I noticed Paul standing just outside the shop window, his face dark with anger. He had heard everything. I should have felt satisfied, knowing Rosalie had finally shown her true colors to her fiancé. But instead, I felt hollow. I knew what came next would be worse than anything she had done so far. Rosalie Owen didn't just want my wedding anymore. She wanted to destroy me completely. And I was running out of ways to stop her. I shouldn't have gone to Rosalie's wedding, but something pulled me there. Maybe the same curiosity that makes people slow down to look at car crashes. I slipped into the church just as the ceremony began, staying in the shadows at the back where no one could see me. Everything was mine. The vintage lace draped along the pews, the hand-pressed flower arrangements, even the exact shade of ivory I had spent months tracking down. But seeing Rosalie in my dream dress, that was the final twist of the knife. Beautiful ceremony, isn't it? I jumped, startled. Frances Owens stood beside me, his expression calm but unreadable. "She stole everything," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Every single detail." "I know," he said quietly. He handed me his phone. On the screen were photos of my wedding planning journal, every page, photographed and saved. "Sunny sent these to her months ago," he explained. "I found them while checking the family cloud storage." My stomach churned. He gave her everything? He thought he was helping? Frances's voice sounded tired. "And he still doesn't see what she's really doing." The wedding march began to play. I froze as I recognized it. The exact vintage recording I had discovered in an old record shop. I watched Rosalie walk down the aisle, floating in my dress, with my smile, surrounded by my dreams. Paul stood at the altar, his face tight and unreadable. For a brief moment, our eyes met, and I saw something in his expression, an apology, maybe? Then Rosalie reached him, and the ceremony began. I should have left then. But I stayed, rooted to the spot, watching as the priest asked the question, "Does anyone have any objections?" The silence was heavy, almost suffocating. Then Paul cleared his throat. "I do," he said quietly. "I object." The church erupted into whispers. Rosalie's face went pale. "Paul," she stammered, her voice unsteady. "What are you doing?" He turned to her, his voice firm. "I can't marry someone who builds their happiness on someone else's pain." He faced the guests, his words cutting through the tension. Everything about this wedding was stolen. The dress, the decorations, even the music. It was all copied from Bianca's plans. Plans that Rosalie took without permission. "That's ridiculous." Rosalie's voice rose, sharp and defensive. "Sunny, tell them." Sunny stood from his seat in the front row, looking utterly confused, caught between his sister and the truth. "I just shared some ideas with you," Sunny said, his voice shaky. "You told me you wanted to help." "Help?" Paul let out a bitter laugh. "Is that what you call tearing apart your brother's relationship and stealing every detail of his wedding?" "It's not stealing if he gave them to me," Rosalie shouted, her mask finally slipping. Her voice turned cold. "Besides, I did her a favor. Someone like her doesn't deserve a Owen family wedding. She's nothing but a second-hand shop girl who has more class in her little finger than you'll ever have," Frances interrupted, his voice ringing out over the stunned guests. "And who just showed everyone in this room who you really are." The silence that followed was overwhelming. I looked around at the guests, their faces filled with shock. Paul stood with quiet dignity. Sunny looked like he was finally starting to understand the damage that had been done. But it was Rosalie's face that stopped me, pure, unfiltered hatred aimed directly at me. "You," she snarled, pointing at me. "You planned this. You turned everyone against me." She lunged, but not at me. Instead, she grabbed the vintage lace runner from the nearest pew and yanked it hard. Flowers and candles toppled to the floor, shattering and scattering everywhere. In seconds, she was ripping through the decorations, destroying everything she had stolen. "Rosalie, stop!" Sunny shouted, grabbing for her arm, but she shoved him away. "This is your fault," she screamed at me. "You took everything from me, my brother, my fiancé, my family's respect. I'll make sure you never have anything of your own." It took security to finally pull her away. I caught Sunny's eye, and the guilt and shame on his face should have felt like a victory. Instead, it just made me feel hollow. As the chaos swirled around me, I slipped out unnoticed. But as I reached the door, I heard Rosalie's final scream. "This isn't over, Bianca. I'll make you pay for this." Walking home in the fading light, her words echoed in my mind. She was right about one thing: it wasn't over. Now I had to decide if protecting myself was worth the risk of destroying what little was left of the Owen family. And the truth was, I wasn't sure I could live with either choice. The next morning, as I opened the shop, I found Rosalie waiting outside. She wasn't wearing her usual designer clothes, just jeans and a plain sweater that made her look almost normal. "We need to talk," she said quietly. I unlocked the door and let her in. The shop felt strange, like it was holding its breath for what was about to happen. "I lost everything yesterday," Rosalie said, running her fingers along a rack of vintage dresses. "Paul won't take my calls. Mother can't even look at me. And Sonny," her voice broke, but she quickly recovered. "I didn't make you do any of it," I said firmly, watching her closely. I kept the counter between us, keeping my voice steady. "You chose to steal my wedding plans. You chose to lie. Because you took my brother from me." Rosalie whirled around, her calm facade cracking. "He was all I had, and then you just walked in with your perfect vintage finds, your creative talent, and your authenticity." She spat the word like it was venom. "Sonny made his own choices," I said firmly. "Did he?" she sneered, pulling out her phone. "Because he's outside right now, ready to choose again." My heart dropped as Sonny walked in, his face filled with guilt, looking caught between the two of us. "Tell her," Rosalie demanded. "Tell her what you decided." Sonny avoided my gaze. "The family needs to heal, Bianca. We need to move on from this. Maybe if you apologized to Rosalie." Apologized? The word felt like shards of glass in my throat. "For turning Paul against her," he continued, "for humiliating her at the wedding." I stared at him, feeling the last shred of hope I had for him crumble. "You still don't get it, do you?" I said quietly. "She didn't just steal my wedding plans, Sonny. She tried to steal my entire life, and you helped her do it." "I never meant." "No." I cut him off. "You never meant anything. That's the problem." I turned to Rosalie. "You want an apology? Fine. I'm sorry I ever thought I could be part of this family. I'm sorry I wasted months loving someone who couldn't even see what was right in front of him." "That's not good enough," Rosalie snapped, her voice shaking. "You destroyed my life, so now I'll destroy your business. I've already called every supplier in the city and told them you sell knockoffs as authentic vintage." "Actually," a new voice interrupted, "you won't be doing that." Paul stood in the doorway, holding a folder. "I recorded everything, Rosalie. Every threat, every lie, every attempt to ruin Bianca's reputation. I think the police would be very interested in this pattern of harassment." Rosalie's face turned pale. "You wouldn't." "Try me," Paul said, his voice cold as steel. "The only reason I haven't handed this over already is because of Bianca. She asked me to wait, to give you a chance to walk away." Sonny turned to me, his voice soft. "Is that true?" I nodded. "I didn't want to destroy your family, Sonny. I just wanted to protect myself." "Bianca," he reached for my hand, but I stepped back. "No. We're done. All of us." I looked at Rosalie, my voice firm. "Take your brother and go. Build whatever story you need to explain your failed wedding. I don't care anymore." "You're making a mistake," she said, but her voice wavered. "The only mistake was thinking I needed any of this." I opened the door. "Goodbye, Rosalie. Goodbye, Sonny." They left silently, Sonny casting one last desperate look over his shoulder. Paul stayed behind, watching me carefully. "You could have destroyed them," he said quietly. "Why didn't you?" I picked up a vintage silk scarf, the one that had started it all. "Because I don't want to be like her," I said softly. "Some things are worth more than revenge." "What will you do now?" Paul asked. I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in months. "What I've always done, find beautiful things that others threw away and give them new life. Just maybe not for the Owen family anymore." As Paul left, I flipped the shop sign to open. Life moved forward, and so did I, surrounded by the vintage pieces I'd restored with love. I realized something important. Sometimes, the most valuable things we find aren't what we're looking for. They're the parts of ourselves we discover along the way. And no one, not even Rosalie Owen, could take that from me. 5 months after Rosalie's failed wedding, I stood in my new studio. The space felt alive, filled with a soft whisper of vintage silk and leather. Morning light poured through tall windows, catching on brass fixtures I'd salvaged from an old department store. Everything in the room had a story just like me. The bell above the door chimed, and Brianna Owen walked in, looking elegant but hesitant. "This is beautiful, Bianca," she said, touching a restored Chanel jacket. "Francis said you'd done something special with the place, but this is incredible." "Thank you." I adjusted a display to keep my hands busy. "I wasn't sure you'd come," Francis insisted. "He wants to talk about investing in your business." She hesitated, her voice soft. "Rosalie left for London last week." I nodded, unsurprised. "And Sonny's? He's taking assignments overseas. I think he finally understands what he lost." "We all do." Before I could respond, Paul appeared in the doorway. Since the wedding, he had become an unlikely ally, helping me source rare vintage pieces through his business contacts. "Ready for the meeting?" he asked, then noticed Brianna. "Mrs. Owen, perfect timing. Did you tell her about the investment offer?" "I was just getting to that." Brianna pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. "Francis, and I want to help you expand. Your talent for restoration, your eye for beauty, it shouldn't be limited to one shop." Inside the envelope was a business proposal, funding to open a chain of high-end vintage restoration boutiques, with me as the creative director. It was the kind of opportunity one had once dreamed of sharing with Sonny. "I don't know," I said slowly. "The Owen family and I don't exactly have the best track record with partnerships." "That's exactly why it should be you," Francis said, stepping into the room. "Someone who chose integrity over approval. Someone who showed us what we had become." "And Rosalie?" "Sonny?" I asked. "They'll learn to live with it," Francis said firmly. "Just like they're learning to live with their choices." Paul touched my arm gently.
You don't have to decide now.
"But don't let what happened stop you from building something amazing." I looked around my studio, taking in the pieces I had rescued and restored, the sketches for designs that were completely my own. Then my eyes landed on something familiar, a bright orange box sitting on the counter. "What's this?" I asked. "Found it at an estate sale," Paul said with a smile. "Thought you might want it back." Inside was the Hermes scarf from that first day with Sonny. But instead of feeling pain, I felt something else, closure. "Okay," I said, turning to Francis and Brianna. "But I have conditions. This will be my vision, my designs, no compromises." "We wouldn't want it any other way," Francis replied warmly. Later, after they left, I stood in my studio doorway, watching the sunset turn the city into shades of gold. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I'm sorry for everything."
N.
I didn't respond. Some things, like vintage pieces, are better left in their boxes, preserved as memories of who we used to be. Instead, I walked to my workbench, where a damaged 1950s evening gown lay waiting for restoration. Its beading was scattered, its seams frayed. But I could see its potential, just like I had finally seen my own. The bell above the door chimed, and a young woman stepped inside, her nervousness as familiar as my own once was. "I found this at a thrift store," she said, holding up a worn designer bag. "Everyone says it's not worth fixing, but you see something in it," I finished for her, recognizing the hope in her eyes. "Let me show you what it could become," I said, leading her to my workbench. As I picked up my tools and started to work, I realized something. The most valuable things we restore aren't just the vintage pieces we find. They're the parts of ourselves we thought were broken beyond repair. And sometimes, letting go of an old dream makes room for something even better to take its place. With each stitch, I began to write my own story, one piece, one moment at a time. As I looked around the nearly empty room, I asked, "Are you ready to leave yet?" My companions sighed. "Just waiting for the movers," they replied with a hint of relief in their voice. "Honestly, I won't miss seeing you around," they added. "And changing the locks like I'd try to break in, that was a bit much." I had always wondered why Larry took such extreme precautions, but now it seemed pointless to ask. When I first met him, Larry was a quiet man, always worried about what others thought of him. After we got married, he became what some might call a henpecked husband. A week after I moved into my new home, Larry showed up, looking desperate. "It's me. Open up," he begged. I pretended I didn't recognize him and answered the door with a confused look.
"I'm Lauren," I said.
I'm 37 and work part-time, 5 days a week. Larry didn't get the hint. It's been 4 years since Larry and I got married. We don't have kids, but I still believe we can find happiness together. In the early days of our marriage, we would stay up late talking about our dreams. Both of us were inexperienced when it came to love, but I thought we genuinely enjoyed being together. Let's be that couple that grows old together, I suggested one night. Yeah, I like that idea, he said. Maybe 4 kids? A boy and a girl? That's exactly what I was thinking. I agreed. Those light-hearted conversations were a joy to me, someone who never thought much about love or marriage. Meeting Larry had been a surprise. We met at a party I attended reluctantly. He seemed just as uninterested in being there, and we bonded over our shared lack of enthusiasm. That night, we started a friendship. Larry was serious and a little reserved, but he was always kind to me. I found that charming. Then, out of nowhere, he proposed. Lauren, will you marry me? I want to make you happy. What? But we're not even dating, I replied, shocked. Larry didn't waver. His confidence caught me off guard, but it didn't scare me away. Instead, it made me think about a life with him. If you're okay with me, then yes, I said. His happiness was clear. In that moment, I realized why life sometimes throws unexpected surprises our way. I truly believed that marrying Larry would bring us a happy future. We rushed into marriage, tying the knot just 3 months after we first met. Since we were both inexperienced with love, our journey was a bit clumsy, but that made it feel like an adventure. However, about a month after moving in together, I started noticing a big difference between what I expected and the reality of our marriage. One day, Larry approached me with a serious expression, more serious than usual. Lauren, there's something I need to talk about, he said in a solemn tone. I was caught off guard when he asked me to quit my job and become a homemaker. This request came out of nowhere. Larry had never shown any issues with me working before, and this marked the start of a strange change in his behavior. Why are you asking me this? I asked, confused. When you work, it makes me feel unneeded, he admitted. Did someone put this idea in your head? I questioned, trying to understand where this was coming from. No, but at my company, all the other men's wives stay home. That's just how it is, he explained. From the beginning of our marriage, I had been clear about my plans to keep working. It was important for saving money and building the life we wanted. Larry's sudden demand left me baffled. We agreed that I would keep working after we got married, didn't we? I reminded him. I know, he said, but as my wife, I hoped you'd consider my feelings. It seemed like he cared more about meeting social expectations than about what made us happy as a couple. Why don't we just pretend I've quit? Nobody has to know, I suggested, unwilling to give up my job. But Larry grew more anxious about what others thought of him. If things don't change, I'll be mocked by my coworkers and bosses. I'm supposed to be the head of this household, aren't I? Please, just do what I'm asking, he insisted, refusing to hear my point of view. I can't make such a big decision right now. I need time to think, I said, trying to buy myself some time. Okay, he replied, but please decide soon. His voice was firm and urgent. I knew I couldn't let this issue drag on for too long. I feared what might happen if I didn't make a choice quickly. Seeking advice, I turned to my boss, Cheryl. She had worked as an administrative assistant since high school and had gone through a similar situation with her controlling ex-husband. Eventually, her marriage ended in divorce, and now she was a strong, independent single mother, someone I deeply admired. That must have been tough, I said as I thought about her story. The idea of divorce crossed my mind, and I reflected on her courage and resilience. As Larry and I navigated the early days of our marriage, we found ourselves at a difficult crossroads. It's tricky, since we're still newlyweds, I thought, considering the weight of his request. The idea of quitting my job felt like giving up a piece of myself, but I couldn't ignore the strain this issue was putting on our relationship. I hadn't fully figured things out, but I knew leaving my job would make it hard to find a similar position later. I decided to share my concerns with Isabella, my boss and mentor. I'm not planning to quit right away, I explained. I'm trying to find a way to keep working, maybe by staying part-time for now. If I switch to full-time, it might draw too much attention. That's a smart approach, Isabella said, encouraging my decision to negotiate with Larry. If he still doesn't agree, we could officially reduce your hours to part-time. That might work better. That sounds like a solid plan. Thank you for supporting me, I replied, feeling grateful. Isabella's reassurance felt like a lifeline during the chaos of my marital struggles. Our conversation deepened, and Isabella revealed that her ex-husband had also changed drastically after they got married. Her story felt unsettlingly similar to mine. I began to see how some men could become almost unrecognizable after marriage, which made me question if Larry had misled me before we tied the knot. Despite countless talks, Larry and I reached a deadlock. Isn't it a wife's role to support her husband and take care of the household after marriage, he argued, clinging to old-fashioned ideas. What era are you living in? These days, both spouses usually work, I countered, shocked by his outdated views. That might be true for others, but we're different. You understand that, don't you? He said, trying to convince me. I understand where you're coming from, but I can't agree with it, I said firmly, asking him to see things from my perspective. But Larry didn't stop. Every day, he pressured me to quit my job. Finally, after speaking with Isabella again, I decided to officially resign. However, I secretly continued working part-time, 5 days a week. Isabella understood my situation and agreed to reduce my hours to help me manage things. I've resigned from my job at the company, just like you wanted, I told Larry, keeping up the act. Really? Thank you. Now I can feel more secure at work, he said, relieved and unaware of the truth. By this point, it was clear Larry cared most about how others saw him. His sudden change in behavior left me confused and disappointed. I chose to keep deceiving him, hoping it would protect both my independence and our marriage. But over time, I realized my hopes for a new beginning were misplaced. Even after my so-called resignation, Larry continued to dominate our relationship and let his frustrations out on me. One day, he suddenly announced a junior colleague is coming over today. I need you to host.
What?
I didn't know about this, I said, startled. Sorry, it was a last-minute decision.
Just keep it simple.
Please have everything ready before they arrive, he added, brushing off my surprise. It felt like another layer of control in a relationship that was growing harder to endure. Before I could say another word, Larry hung up. Determined to meet his expectations, I prepared drinks and snacks for the guests. When Larry arrived, however, he wasn't pleased. Didn't I ask you to prepare for today? He scolded. You said to keep it simple, and that's exactly what I did, I replied, confused by his reaction. This looks so basic. It reflects poorly on me. I need you to fulfill your role as a wife properly, he added. What does that even mean? I did my best. Is there something wrong with what I prepared? I asked, genuinely puzzled. No, not really, he muttered, his face unreadable, a far cry from the man I once knew. From that day on, Larry began hosting guests almost every week. While he enjoyed these gatherings, he expected me to always be ready to entertain, as if he wanted to show off how great his life was. Larry, having people over every week feels like too much, I said one day. It's fine. Everyone enjoys it, and you should support my decisions. It's your duty as my wife, Lauren, he responded firmly. But keeping up this lifestyle wasn't just exhausting, it was expensive. How am I supposed to manage everything? I asked, frustrated. Stop complaining, he snapped, brushing off my concerns and avoiding any real answers. Every morning, I woke up early to prepare meals, make sandwiches for his lunch, and have his suit ready for the day. On days I worked part-time, from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., I barely had time to rest. Despite the exhaustion, my job felt like my only escape. Lauren, you seem tired lately. Are you okay? My coworker Evelyn asked one day, noticing how worn out I looked. Yeah, a bit, I admitted, grateful someone cared. Let me know if there's anything I can do. I'm here for you, she offered warmly. Thank you, Evelyn. You've been such a great support, I replied, appreciating her kindness. Evelyn knew about my secret part-time job and had helped me keep it hidden from Larry. I appreciate everything you've done for me, I told her one day. Paul mentioned it, but I never thought Larry would act this way, she confessed. Neither did I. I've tried talking to him, but he won't listen. We barely even have meaningful conversations anymore, I sighed, feeling overwhelmed.
I'm sorry, Lauren.
But don't be too hard on yourself. You're doing so much, managing work and everything at home. That's impressive, Evelyn reassured me. Her words meant a lot. Living with her support made my struggles more bearable, a stark contrast to the stress I faced at home. But Larry seemed uncomfortable with how close Evelyn and I had become. Then one day, he made a shocking decision. Where's Evelyn? What happened to her? I asked, noticing her absence. She's gone, he replied flatly. What do you mean, gone? I questioned, my heart sinking at his sudden and cryptic words. I asked, feeling more confused. What do you mean she's gone? Mom's getting older, and I thought it would be better for her to be in a facility, Larry replied casually. You actually put her in a home? My voice cracked, barely hiding my disbelief. Yeah, just got her settled into the new place. Now I have the house to myself, he said, as though he had just completed an ordinary task. I was at my parents' house when this happened, and I couldn't believe he had made such a big decision on his own. His mother was older, sure, but she wasn't at the point of needing full-time care. It became obvious that he had sent Evelyn away just to have the house to himself. When I visited Evelyn at the facility, she looked surprised but resigned. I'm sorry it came to this, I apologized, feeling guilty. It's not your fault, Evelyn reassured me. I never thought he'd go this far. I'm just worried about what he might do if I resist. I'll miss you, but I'll be okay. If you need anything, you can always visit me here, she added, trying to comfort me. Thank you, I replied, the weight of the situation sinking in. Afterward, Larry and I moved into his parents' home. Despite managing the household carefully and doing everything I could to keep things in order, Larry never acknowledged my efforts or showed any appreciation. The idea of having children, a topic we had once eagerly discussed, now seemed like a distant dream. Larry began spending more time away from home and ignoring me. On top of that, he started imposing strange rules. For example, I had to stay awake until he returned home, no matter how late it was. If I woke up later than him in the morning, he would get angry. What time will you be home tonight? I asked one evening. I'm not sure. Just stay up until I get back, okay, he instructed, as if it were normal. One day, after a similar conversation, Larry came home late. As I took his suit to hang it up, I noticed something odd. There was a sweet, feminine scent on his clothes, a perfume I didn't recognize since I didn't wear any. It was clear evidence of an affair. Every time he came home late, I would catch the same scent. That day, he suggested something unusual. Why don't you go to bed early tonight? His suggestion raised my suspicions even more. Quietly, I went to the living room and overheard a conversation. Oh, she's clueless. When are you going to leave her? A woman's voice asked. I'll kick her out soon enough, Larry's voice responded, unmistakable and clear. Their voices carried easily, especially the woman's, which was loud and confident. From their conversation, it was clear this relationship had been going on for a while. The perfume incident hadn't shocked me, but overhearing their words left me feeling disgusted. Larry was still my husband, yet his treatment of me was harsh and unchanged. Despite all my hopes for things to get better, nothing had improved. As we approached the 3rd anniversary of our marriage, Larry surprised me yet again with something I never saw coming. I have a business trip the day after tomorrow. I need you to get everything ready, Larry announced abruptly. That's very short notice, I replied, suspicious of the sudden timing. I'll be away for about 5 days. Please make sure my clothes are ready, he added. His words didn't sit right with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that this so-called business trip was just an excuse to spend time with his mistress. I remembered a warning from a colleague's wife at a company gathering. Be cautious if he suddenly mentions a business trip. Our company doesn't even have those. Her words echoed in my mind as I pieced things together. My suspicions had been confirmed earlier when I accidentally found a chat on his phone, which he'd left in the living room. The messages revealed he had taken paid leave for this trip. That discovery was a turning point for me. I knew our marriage was falling apart. Armed with proof of his affair, I decided to confront him with divorce papers when he returned. But Larry acted first. "Are you ready to leave?" "The movers will be here soon," he said coldly as he walked through the door. "Why are you saying this all of a sudden?" I asked, stunned by his bluntness. "I need you out of the house before I get back," he demanded. "You can't just spring this on me and expect me to leave immediately," I countered, trying to make sense of his behavior. "Fine, but start packing." "I'll wait a bit," he said dismissively. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The man I once thought was gentle and overly concerned had become cold and domineering. This was the final straw. The future I had envisioned with him felt like a distant memory. Living with someone like this, I realized there was no bright future ahead. As I packed my things, he added almost casually, "Oh, I'm changing the locks too." "Got it," I replied quietly, my heart sinking. "The thought of not having to see your face again is a relief," he said as his parting words after nearly 4 years of marriage. Convinced our relationship was beyond saving, I left the house that same day. Soon after, I instructed my lawyer to file for divorce. But Larry didn't stop there. Boldly, he began posting pictures with his mistress on social media, openly flaunting their relationship. It was shocking how reckless he was, not realizing he was providing even more evidence of his affair. Even our mutual friends noticed his strange behavior, marking the public unraveling of what we had once shared. After leaving my in-laws' home, I looked back at everything that had happened. I no longer felt sadness, only relief that I was finally free from the weight of our broken marriage. I transitioned back to full-time work and moved into a high-rise apartment in the suburbs, a place I had always dreamed of living. The apartment was spacious, perfect for one person, and felt wonderfully freeing without Larry around. About a month after settling in, I was startled one morning by the sound of the doorbell. Looking through the monitor, I was shocked to see Larry standing outside. "Hey, it's me, Larry." "Open up, Lauren," he called out, his tone confident and demanding. His sudden appearance and entitled attitude left me speechless. Deciding to act like I didn't know him, I spoke through the intercom. Who are you?" "I'm sorry, but I don't know you," I said calmly. "Don't tell me you've forgotten your husband's face," he exclaimed, clearly frustrated. "I'm not married." "I think you've mistaken me for someone else," I replied, watching as his desperation grew. His face looked nothing like the timid man I once knew. "Please, just listen to me. I've been deceived, and I need Lauren's help," he pleaded. "I'm sorry, but I'm not obligated to help you. If you don't leave, I'll have to call the police," I said firmly, keeping up my act. Larry seemed to think I would always be there to solve his problems, but I was no longer that person. He refused to give up, though, and his tone turned desperate. "You can't just leave me to deal with this. You don't have to be so tough on me," he whimpered. "And by the way, you can't stay at your parents' house anymore," he added suddenly. "What do you mean? Do you even know whose name the house is under now?" I asked, surprised. "No, but it's not mine anymore," he said hesitantly. "That's right. It used to belong to Evelyn. Now it's in my name," I explained, revealing the significant change he didn't know about. When Larry had demanded I leave, I confided in Evelyn. She had been visibly upset and disappointed by his actions. "I can't believe my son has turned out like this. I'm truly sorry, especially after all the help you've given us," Evelyn had told me during one of our talks. "Evelyn, you're divorcing Larry, aren't you?" she had asked gently. "Yes, it's for the best," I confirmed. "In that case," she had begun, offering her full support for my decision. Standing at my door that morning, Larry still believed he had power over me. But I had moved on. I wasn't the same person who tolerated his behavior. I shut off the intercom, leaving him outside to deal with the mess he created. "I'll transfer the house to you," Evelyn said, surprising both me and, I assumed, Larry as well. Why would she do that? Larry would have been baffled by such a decision, unaware of the support Evelyn was offering me after everything he'd put me through. What Larry didn't know was that, during all this chaos, he had been living with his mistress. That's the reality. Understand the situation and leave, I told him firmly, shutting down any further attempts at reconciliation or intrusion into my life. I didn't expect to see him again, but I made it clear that if he tried to contact me, I wouldn't hesitate to involve the police. With that warning, he finally left. The divorce moved forward as planned, and I received the settlement we had agreed upon. Larry's choices had backfired. His mistress had manipulated him financially and abandoned him once his money ran out. The divorce settlement totaled about $500,000, leaving Larry in an even worse position. But I wasn't going to stop there. I hired both a lawyer and a detective to ensure that any financial claims against him were fully pursued. I also pushed for an additional $25,000 as part of the settlement, which looked promising. Meanwhile, the house ownership was officially transferred to me. Larry initially resisted moving out, but legal action forced him to comply. He had no choice but to leave. As for his current situation, I have no idea, and I have no interest in finding out. At some point, Larry's company discovered the photos he had posted with his mistress on social media. Unable to face the embarrassment or maintain the facade of his once lavish lifestyle, he chose to resign from his job. It seemed like an inevitable outcome, given his true nature. If I were to reflect on everything that happened, I'd say this. I don't dwell on it. Yes, I'm divorced now, but I see it as a valuable lesson and an opportunity to move forward with a positive outlook. My bond with Evelyn remains strong, and I am focused on building my career and embracing life as an independent, single woman. I'm looking forward to enjoying the freedom and opportunities that this new chapter offers. My name is Olivia, and I became a single mom when my daughter, Julie, was just 11 years old. My ex-husband, James, decided he found someone better and left us. Just like that, he was gone, leaving me to pick up the pieces of our broken family. From that moment on, it was just Julie and me. I threw myself into work, determined to give her everything she needed. I climbed the corporate ladder, worked overtime, and took on extra projects, anything to make sure she never went without. But the pain of being abandoned hit her hard. She became distant, angry, and her grades started dropping. She would get upset over the smallest things, and I didn't know how to help. I was doing everything I could to be both mom and dad, the provider and the comforter, but it felt like I was failing. Finally, I decided to take her to see a psychologist. Dr. Virginia was kind and patient, but even she had a tough time reaching Julie. "Your daughter is dealing with a lot of pain," she told me after a particularly tough session. "It's going to take time, Olivia. Be patient with her." Years passed, and things seemed to improve, or at least I thought they did. Julie grew into a beautiful, smart young woman. On the surface, it looked like she was healing, but I could feel something wasn't quite right. There was a quiet resentment in her that I couldn't fully understand. It wasn't until I started dating again that I saw how deep the damage really was. Whenever I met someone new, someone who showed real interest in me as a person, not just as Julie's mom, she would get upset. The first time it happened, I was completely caught off guard. I had been seeing Donald for a few weeks, and things were going well. He was kind, funny, and seemed to genuinely care about me. I thought it was time for him to meet Julie. One morning at breakfast, I decided to tell her. "Honey," I said, "I've invited someone over for dinner tonight. His name is Donald, and I want the two most important people in my life to meet each other." Julie stopped eating and looked at me, her eyes narrowing. "Is he your boyfriend or something?" she asked. I hesitated, unsure of how to respond. "We've been seeing each other, yes," I admitted, "but it's not serious yet. That's why I want you to meet him." Her response was cold and immediate. "No," she said firmly. "I don't want to meet him. I don't want him in our house. Cancel the dinner." I was stunned. "Julie, sweetie," I started, but I didn't know what to say. "I know this might be hard for you," I said gently. "Hard," she shouted, standing up so fast her chair tipped over. "You think this is hard? You want to abandon me, just like he did. Start a new family and forget all about me." She stormed out of the kitchen, leaving me alone with my cold coffee and a sinking feeling in my chest. I should have known then this was just the beginning. Despite her outburst, I decided to go ahead with the dinner. I thought maybe if she met Donald, she'd realize he wasn't a threat. I couldn't have been more wrong. Donald arrived at 8, looking nervous but trying to stay positive. I introduced him to Julie, who barely looked at him. "Nice to meet you, Julie," he said, offering his hand. "Your mom's told me a lot about you." Julie ignored his hand completely. "I bet she has," she muttered under her breath. The tension in the room was unbearable. We sat down to eat, and I tried to keep the conversation light. But Julie's short answers and cold stares made it nearly impossible. Halfway through the meal, Donald made a harmless comment about how nice it was to have a home-cooked dinner. That's when Julie lost it. "Oh, I bet you'd love to have this all the time, wouldn't you?" she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "Playing happy families with my mom." "Julie," I warned, my voice firm. But she didn't stop. "What, Mom? Isn't that what this is? You're trying to replace Dad, trying to get rid of me like he did." "That's not true," I said, my voice trembling. "I'm not trying to replace anyone." "Then what are you trying to do?" she snapped. "Ruin everything?" She stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Well, guess what? I won't let you." Before I could say anything, she grabbed her plate and hurled it onto the floor. The sound of the plate shattering echoed through the room. "Julie," I gasped. "What are you doing?" She didn't answer. She grabbed another plate and smashed it, then another. Food and broken dishes were everywhere. "This is our home," she screamed.
Ours.
Not his. Donald stood up, looking stunned. "I think I should go," he said softly. After Donald left, Julie locked herself in her room. I stayed up late cleaning the mess, tears streaming down my face and mixing with the soapy water as I scrubbed the floor. The next morning, Julie acted like nothing had happened. But everything had changed. From that day on, every time I tried to date, it was the same anger, tantrums, and hostility. As the years went by, I started pushing people away. It was easier than dealing with Julie's outbursts. I told myself it was temporary, that one day she'd grow up and understand. But deep down, I knew I was just making excuses. By the time Julie graduated high school, I realized how much I had let her control my life. I was so proud of Julie. Despite everything, she had done well in school and gotten into a good college. I thought maybe things would finally change. The night before she left for college, she said, "Mom, you won't bring anyone home while I'm gone, will you?" I sighed. "Julie, honey, you're starting a new chapter of your life. Don't you think it's time I start mine too?" Her face darkened. "So, you're planning to replace me?" "Julie, please," I said, trying to keep calm. "That's not fair. I've spent the last 9 years putting you first. I've given up everything for you." The moment I said it, I regretted it. Her eyes filled with tears. "So, I'm just a burden to you? A sacrifice you had to make," she cried. "No, sweetie, that's not what I meant at all," I said quickly, trying to fix my mistake. But it was too late. She stormed off to her room and slammed the door. The next morning, Julie left for college, without saying goodbye. With her away, I finally had time to focus on myself. I got a new haircut, bought some clothes I liked, and even joined a gym. I reconnected with old friends, went out more, and eventually met Timothy. He was kind, funny, and understood my complicated relationship with Julie. We started dating, and for a while, life felt good. But even from college, Julie tried to control my life. Every time she called or visited, she would question me about my social life. "Mom, you haven't let anyone into our house, have you?" she'd ask. I tried to reason with her. "Julie, you're building your own life now. Don't you think it's time I do the same?" But she would get angry. She even threatened to drop out of college, saying she couldn't focus because I was replacing her. When she found out about Timothy, she called me in tears.
"How could you do this to me?"
"My grades are suffering because I'm so upset about you dating."
It was exhausting.
I felt like I was walking on eggshells, trying to balance my happiness with her demands. Still, I kept hoping things would improve once she graduated and started her own life. 5 years passed in this back and forth. Then, out of the blue, Julie called. Mom, I'm coming home, and I'm bringing someone with me. My heart leapt. Maybe she had found someone. Maybe now she'd understand why I wanted to date, and that it didn't mean I loved her any less. When they arrived, I was shocked. Julie introduced the man beside her, not as her boyfriend, but as her husband. This is Gary, she said, giving me a challenging look. We got married last week in Vegas. I couldn't believe it. My daughter was married, and I hadn't even known she was dating someone. Julie, I gasped. Why didn't you tell me? Why wasn't I invited? She shrugged. We only met a few days ago.
It was spontaneous.
They didn't stay long. As they were leaving, I hugged Julie tightly. I hope you'll be very happy, I whispered, trying to ignore the knot of worry in my stomach. For 7 months, I barely heard from her. I tried to give them space, hoping they were settling into married life. Then one rainy night, Julie showed up at my door, her face streaked with mascara. He cheated on me, she sobbed. I found him with another woman. We're getting divorced. Julie moved back in with me. She quickly found a job but showed no signs of looking for her own place. Remembering how she had reacted to my earlier attempts to find my own happiness, I didn't push her. I was 47, and Julie was 25. We had settled into an uneasy routine when the doctor gave me news that changed everything. I had intestinal cancer. Hearing the word cancer felt like being hit by a truck.
It was terrifying.
When I told Julie, she broke down in tears. Mom, she sobbed, holding onto me tightly. I'll take care of you. I promise we'll get through this together. In that moment, all our past arguments seemed to disappear. I quit my job, grateful for the savings I had set aside over the years. At least money wouldn't be something we had to worry about on top of everything else. Then the chemotherapy started, bringing a whole new set of challenges. I was constantly tired, nauseous, and in pain. Julie took time off work to care for me. At first, she was attentive and determined, doing everything she could to help. But as the days turned into weeks, the reality of my illness began to weigh on her. The cancer had done terrible damage to my digestive system. I often struggled to use the bathroom and sometimes needed help cleaning myself. It was embarrassing, but I had no choice. On the worst days after chemo sessions, I was too weak to even get to the toilet. I started noticing changes in Julie's attitude. The concern in her eyes was slowly replaced by something else, disgust. She'd wrinkle her nose when she came near me and complain about the smell. Mom, you stink, she said one day, not even trying to hide her discomfort. Can't you do something about it? I wanted to yell at her, to remind her that I was fighting for my life and couldn't control what the cancer and treatments were doing to my body. But I didn't. I stayed quiet. She was trying in her own way, and I told myself that had to be enough. One day, after an especially hard morning, Julie came to me with a serious look on her face. Mom, she said, avoiding my eyes, I think I need to go back to work. We should hire a nurse to take care of you. I nodded, hiding my disappointment. I understand, I said softly. We'll look into getting a nurse. The clinic where I was receiving treatment assigned me a nurse named Virginia to help at home. She was a blessing, strong, skilled, and always kind. Virginia never made me feel embarrassed or ashamed. When she helped me clean up, she'd smile and say, "Don't worry, Olivia. We'll have you feeling fresh as a daisy in no time." With Virginia's help, my life improved a lot. I felt more comfortable, and it was a relief to have someone who treated me with dignity. But Julie wasn't happy about the arrangement. I don't like having a stranger in our house all the time, she complained. It feels invasive. I tried to explain to Julie that Virginia was essential for my care, but she wouldn't listen. Then one evening, she dropped a bombshell. Mom, I've been thinking, she said in a careful tone. Maybe it would be better if you moved to a care facility. You'd get round-the-clock help, and I could look after the house. I stared at her in shock.
No.
I'm not leaving my home. This is where I feel comfortable, and this is where I'm going to fight this cancer. Her face darkened with frustration.
Fine, she snapped.
Have it your way. She stormed off, leaving me feeling a deep sadness. I was fighting for my life, but but it felt like I was losing my daughter. The chemo treatments were brutal. Each day brought new challenges and humiliations. But nothing prepared me for the day my hair began falling out. I was in the bathroom, running my fingers through my long hair, once my pride, when clumps came away in my hand. I stared at the strands in shock. Julie's shriek snapped me out of it.
Mom.
There's hair everywhere. I'm so tired of cleaning it up, she yelled, standing in the doorway with a look of disgust. Her words hit hard. I looked at her, searching for some compassion, but found none. In that moment, I made a decision. Virginia, I called softly to my nurse. Can you cut my hair? Virginia nodded and carefully trimmed away the remaining strands. As she worked, I caught a glimpse of Julie in the mirror. Instead of offering comfort, she laughed. You look like an alien, she said, smirking. Maybe you should get a wig. Her words hurt more than I could express, cutting deeper than any physical pain. That night, after Virginia left and Julie went to her room, I cried silently into my pillow. I kept asking myself, where had I gone wrong? How had my sweet little girl turned into someone so cold and unkind? Weeks passed, and I kept fighting the cancer, even though every day was a struggle. Then, one afternoon, Julie dropped another surprise. Mom, I'm having some friends over for my birthday next week, she said casually. I blinked, surprised. Here? Julie, I don't think that's a good idea. I need rest. And the noise. Her expression hardened. If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else for the night. Actually, that might be better. I won't have to be embarrassed by you in front of my friends or deal with the smell. Her words felt like a slap. I had been bedridden for days, barely able to move. But her cruelty gave me the strength to sit up. I fixed her with a glare that would have made my own mother proud. This is my house, I said firmly. My voice was low but firm. If you don't like living here with me, you're welcome to leave. Julie's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with anger. You're so selfish, she screamed. All you think about is yourself. You know what? It would be better for everyone if you just died already. Then you'd stop being such an inconvenience to everyone around you. The room went silent. I stared at my daughter, stunned, unable to believe what she had just said. In her eyes, there was no love, no kindness, just cold, hard anger. Get out, I shouted, surprising even myself with the force in my voice. Pack your things and get out of my house.
Now.
For a moment, Julie just stood there, frozen. Then, with a scream of frustration, she stormed off to her room. I heard her throwing things into bags, slamming drawers as she packed. A few minutes later, she stormed past me, her bags in hand. I hate you, she spat as she reached the door. I wish Dad had taken me with him when he left. And then she was gone, slamming the front door so hard it bounced open. The door stayed ajar, mocking me as a reminder of her dramatic exit. I sat there, staring at it, feeling completely drained. Finally, I reached for my phone with trembling hands and called my friend Abigail. When she answered, I choked out, Abigail, I need help. Can you come over? Abigail arrived quickly, concern written all over her face. She closed the door and rushed to my side. Olivia, what happened? Everything spilled out. Julie's harsh words, her cruel behavior, and how she had left. Abigail listened, her expression shifting between shock and anger. Oh, Olivia, she sighed when I finished. You need to stop worrying about that ungrateful girl and focus on yourself. You're fighting cancer, for God's sake. We talked for hours, tears flowing freely. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the room, I came to a painful realization. It's my fault, I whispered. I raised her to be this way. I put her first, ignored my own needs. I thought I was being a good mother, but I was just teaching her to be selfish. Abigail took my hand. It's not your fault, Olivia.
You did your best.
But now, it's time to put yourself first. I nodded. From now on, I'm going to think about myself for once. True to my word, I threw myself into my treatment with new determination. Virginia, my nurse, was a blessing, helping me through the worst days with her kindness and care. I endured 2 more rounds of chemotherapy. They were brutal, leaving me weak and sick, but I refused to give up. Meanwhile, my phone stayed silent. No calls. No texts from Julie. I told myself it was for the best, though it hurt more than I wanted to admit. I needed to focus on my health, but the silence from Julie hurt more than I wanted to admit. Months passed, and during a routine checkup, my doctor smiled, really smiled, for the first time since my diagnosis. "The cancer is receding, Olivia," he said. "You're not out of the woods yet, but this is very, very good news." I left the hospital feeling lighter than I had in months. The world suddenly seemed brighter, full of possibilities I thought I'd lost forever. I was thin and frail after months of illness, and my clothes hung loosely on me. But for the first time in a long while, I felt like myself again. I started taking short walks in the park near my house, letting the sun warm my face and feeling the breeze on what was left of my hair. One afternoon, I stood in front of my closet and realized none of my clothes fit me anymore. But instead of feeling sad, I felt free. It was time for a change, inside and out. I spent a whole day going through my wardrobe, making piles to donate to a local shelter. As I packed up the bags, it felt like I was shedding more than just clothes. I was letting go of the old Olivia, the one who always put everyone else first and let herself be walked over. Looking around my big, empty house, I realized it didn't fit me anymore. It wasn't who I was now. With my savings providing a safety net, I made a bold decision. I wouldn't return to work. Instead, I would downsize and focus on truly living. I contacted a realtor and put my house on the Donaldet. It sold quickly, and I found a small, cozy apartment that felt just right for me. Bright, manageable, and full of potential, it was the perfect place for a fresh start. I used the extra money from the sale to secure my financial future, and for the first time in years, I felt safe and at peace. Life was simple and good. I spent my days exploring my new neighborhood, trying new hobbies, and just enjoying being alive. Then, for months after I'd settled into my new life, I received an unexpected phone call. It was the realtor who had sold my old house. "Mrs. Walker," he began, sounding a little awkward, "the new owners of your old home are having some issues. They've asked for your contact information. Is it all right if I give them your numbers?" I felt a mix of curiosity and concern as I considered his question. I agreed, and not long after, my phone rang again. This time, it was the new owner of my old house, Mr. Patrick. "Mrs. Walker," he began, his voice tense, "I'm sorry to bother you, but something strange happened today. A young woman tried to break into the house. First, she tried using a key, and when that didn't work, she started forcing the door open. When I confronted her, she got hysterical, screaming that this was her house and she was supposed to inherit it after her mother's death. The blood drained from my face. It had to be Julie. She must have thought I was dead and come to claim her inheritance. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Patrick," I said, my voice shaking. "I think that might have been my daughter. We've been estranged." "Your daughter," he interrupted, sounding shocked. "But she said you were dead." "I've been very ill, and we haven't spoken in months," I explained, not wanting to go into detail. "Mr. Patrick, could I ask a favor? If she comes back, would you call me?" He agreed, and we ended the call. Part of me wanted to ignore it, to stay in my new, peaceful life. But I knew I couldn't. This confrontation had been a long time coming. It was time to face Julie and say all the things I should have said years ago. The next day, my phone rang again. "She's here," Mr. Patrick said, his voice tense. "And she's causing quite a scene." I took a deep breath, bracing myself. "I'm on my way." The drive to my old house felt surreal. As I pulled up, I could hear Julie shouting before I even stepped out of the car. Her angry voice carried across the yard. "This is my house," she was yelling at the Patricks, who stood on the porch looking shocked and frightened. "Get out.
Now."
I got out of the car, and for a moment, everything seemed to freeze. Julie turned and saw me. Her expression shifted from shock to pure rage. "You," she spat. "You're supposed to be dead." I felt an unexpected calm settle over me, a stark contrast to the chaos. "I'm sorry to disappoint you, Julie," I said, my voice steady. Her face twisted with fury. What's going on? Why are these people in our house? It's not our house anymore, Julie, I said quietly. I sold it. Her eyes widened in disbelief, then narrowed in anger.
You can't do that.
It was supposed to be mine. I was supposed to inherit it when you died. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh. I'm sorry I inconvenienced you by surviving, I said, my voice steady. Julie's face turned red with anger. You don't understand. I have debts. I need money. I shook my head, painfully aware of the Patricks and the small crowd of neighbors watching the scene unfold. I don't owe you anything, Julie. You abandoned me when I was fighting for my life. You wished I was dead. Why should I help you now? Because you're my mother, she screamed. You're supposed to take care of me. A wave of sadness swept over me, but I didn't waver.
No, Julie.
Not anymore. You're an adult. Your choices, your consequences. Her face twisted into a hateful expression. You know what? Dad was right to leave you. You're useless. It would have been better if you had died. Her cruel words hung in the air, shocking even the onlookers into silence. But this time they didn't hurt me like they used to. This time, I felt only pity for the angry, bitter woman my daughter had become. Without saying another word, I turned and walked back to my car. Before getting in, I spoke to the Patricks. If she comes back or tries to break in again, call the police. She has no right to be here. As I drove away, I caught one last glimpse of Julie in my rearview mirror. Her face was a mix of shock and fury. But for the first time, her anger didn't affect me. I was free. In the months that followed, I fully embraced my new life. I took up painting and found joy in splashing colors across a canvas. My health kept improving, and every day I felt stronger and more alive. Julie never called or tried to contact me again. Sometimes, I felt a pang of sadness for the relationship we had lost. But mostly, I felt relief. I had spent so many years trying to fill the endless pit of her needs. Now, for the first time, I was living for myself.
My grandmother just passed away. I was always there for her, through all the hard times and happy times. I can't say the same for the rest of my family, so I don't know why they were so surprised when Grandma decided to leave everything to me in her will, and they got nothing. Hi everyone, I'm Jesse, a 27-year-old, and I never thought I'd be sharing a story like this. My family has been hit hard by a sad loss. Just a few days ago, my grandmother, Grandma Laura, passed away suddenly. She was the heart of our family, the one who kept us all close with her love, warmth, and wisdom. Losing her has left a hole in our lives that feels impossible to fill, and my family is struggling to accept her passing. We knew she was sick for a long time, but no one expected her to go so soon. The doctors had said she might have 7 more months, but she was gone by the end of the week. Grandma Laura was more than just a grandmother to us. She was someone we could trust, learn from, and lean on. Every family gathering felt special because of her joyful laughter, endless stories, and genuine interest in all our lives. Her love was without limits. She was always there to offer comfort, guidance, and support. Now, without her, our family feels lost, and the pain of her absence is heavy. Every morning when I wake up, I forget for a moment that she's gone. For a second, everything feels normal, and then I remember, she's really gone. I'll never get to smell her perfume again or help her bake those cookies. She hasn't had me on her lap in over a decade, but right now, I wish I could sit with her on her lap just once more. The days since she passed have felt strange and empty. The house, once full of her presence, now feels silent. Her favorite chair sits empty, and no one has the heart to sit in it. For the past 51 years, she lived in that house, sat in that chair, and held us together. Sitting in her chair now feels wrong. Everyone has been crying so much, it's like the sadness won't end. Grandma Laura was my dad's mom, and he passed away too. A few years ago, my dad passed away, and now my mom has been crying for days. The whole family feels like a big part of our hearts is missing, leaving an empty space that feels impossible to fill. No one is saying it out loud, but I can see it in the sad looks on their faces and the way they keep glancing at her chair. With Grandma Laura gone, the fragile balance in our family is starting to crack. She was the glue that held us all together, always calming things down and giving wise advice. Without her, tension is starting to build. We didn't realize just how much she held us together, and now that she's gone, small cracks in our relationships are showing. Even simple things, like planning her funeral, handling her things, and deciding on her estate, are causing fights. Everyone's emotions are running high, and it's sad to see once close family members now feeling this strain. My uncle wants everyone to pitch in for a big, fancy funeral because he thinks Grandma Laura deserves it. Some of the family agrees, saying she should have a special farewell. But my sister, who's in her first year of college and barely has enough money, can't afford to pitch in. She's living on ramen noodles and cheap food, and some of our cousins are also struggling with money. Tension is growing. After my uncle suggested the fancy funeral, my sister spoke up, saying Grandma Laura wouldn't want us to waste money like that. This caused a huge fight, with different sides of the family taking different stands. I'm stuck in the middle, just trying to deal with all the yelling while also grieving the loss of Grandma. I tried to calm everyone down, using some of the phrases Grandma used to say when people argued. But it just doesn't work the same way when it's not her saying them. I don't have her calming energy, and honestly, I feel pretty angry. Last night, my uncles almost started fighting over the funeral, right in Grandma's house, the house they grew up in, where Grandma raised them. She's barely gone, and they're already acting like kids. It feels so disrespectful to her memory, and I wanted to scream at them for acting this way, but I know it wouldn't make any difference. The days just keep going, and it feels harder with each one. I can see how the tension is affecting our family. Siblings who were once so close now avoid each other, and nobody is really talking. People barely look each other in the eyes anymore. The strong bonds Grandma Laura built between us seem to be coming apart right before my eyes, and it breaks my heart. The reading of her will is making everyone even more tense. Grandma Laura was said to have saved up a lot of money over the years, though no one knows exactly how much. She lived a simple life, only really spending on birthday and Christmas gifts. But we know she had money. It's become almost like a family legend. My uncle swears he saw her bank book when he was 7 and saw $1 billion. No one believes him, but we know there were a lot of zeros. Some family members are open about hoping to get an inheritance, while others try to keep it quiet. It's sad to see how the thought of money is causing a rift between us, filling the room with unease and distrust. People are eyeing each other and asking questions about the money, each wanting to know what they'll get. It makes me sick. Even my sister has joined in. Grandma Laura hasn't even been gone a week, and already the family she loved and raised has turned this into a hunt for money. I feel like crying. As we wait for the will to be read, I'm torn. I'm worried about the fights and disagreements that might come over her estate. I fear her death might change our family forever, breaking the close bond we once had. But I'm also really sad because her passing has made me think about life and how short it really is. It's a reminder that nothing in life lasts forever, and that family is about love, memories, and connection, not money. Everything just feels so hard right now. I'm suddenly scared of losing everyone I love, scared that our family will never be the same. I'm scared that when the will is read, someone will be upset with what they get, and with such a big family, jealousy is bound to happen. Honestly, I don't even know why I'm sharing all this here. I don't know. I guess I'm hoping someone will give me advice or have the perfect way to make my family stop fighting. I just want us all to honor Grandma Laura's memory and act the way she'd want us to. But that feels more and more impossible as each day goes by. Update 1. 2 of my uncles actually got into a drunken fight over the funeral plans. Can you believe it? Instead of mourning Grandma Laura, they were arguing about money. Both of them were drinking at a local bar. My broke uncle, James, was venting to his friend about my other uncle, Larry. Larry's the one who wants everyone to chip in for a big, expensive funeral. James was bad-mouthing Larry, and Larry overheard him. They started yelling at each other, and things quickly got out of hand. The police ended up getting called, and both uncles were arrested for disorderly conduct. It was such an embarrassing scene, and I couldn't believe it was happening. Half of the family thinks Larry is out of touch for expecting everyone to pay for a fancy funeral. Larry's wife comes from a wealthy family, So even though our family isn't rich, he's used to a more luxurious life now. He seems to forget that not everyone has the money to spare. Meanwhile, James is a recovering addict who's been sleeping on a friend's couch for 5 months while he looks for a job. Of course, he can't afford an expensive funeral. Honestly, I'm not taking sides. I just want them both to stop fighting and remember that their mom just died. Seeing them like this is incredibly disappointing. I used to look up to them, and now they're facing legal trouble because of their actions. It's a harsh reminder that grief and stress can bring out the worst in people, even in those we thought we knew well. Larry's wife bailed him out of jail the next morning, but James had to stay there for 15 hours before someone helped him out. Now, the two aren't even speaking to each other. The aftermath has been a mess, with family members taking sides and making things worse. It's clear that Grandma Laura's passing has deeply changed our family, and I'm scared the damage can't be fixed. It's heartbreaking. It breaks my heart to see the strong bond we once had fall apart right in front of me. I'm struggling to accept that things might never be the same. Holding on to grudges and fighting over money is the last thing Grandma Laura would have wanted. This is a painful reminder of how short life is and how precious family should be. I wish I could say things are getting better, but they aren't. The hurt caused by everything that's happened since Grandma Laura passed is still fresh, and it's hard to see a way forward. This is a harsh reminder that life can get messy, and family drama can be really tough. I don't know how the two sides of my family are supposed to come together in a few days for the reading of Grandma Laura's will. If she didn't have much, I doubt anyone will be calm or understanding. They're already fighting over a few $1,000s. How will they act if there are millions, like the family rumors say? I'm just hoping the lawyer has a panic button in her office because things are about to get very, very intense. Hey, I'm back with an update, and it's not a happy one. I'd hoped the family would come together peacefully when the will was read, but that didn't happen. We were all waiting for the reading of Grandma Laura's will, and what happened next left me totally shocked. I could hardly believe it when the lawyer announced it. Grandma Laura didn't leave any money to any of my aunts, uncles, cousins, or even my sister. She left everything to me. Millions of dollars, all to me. It felt like the room was spinning, and my heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear. The family was furious. I didn't even need to look around to feel their anger. When I did, I saw faces full of disbelief, anger, and betrayal. My uncles, aunts, and cousins were exchanging looks, muttering to each other, and it was clear they were anything but happy. Probably the understatement of the century. As the reality of the situation hit me, I felt a rush of emotions, overwhelmed, confused, and torn. I never asked for this. I never thought I'd be the only one to inherit Grandma Laura's estate. It felt like a huge weight dropped on me, and I didn't know how to handle it. I'm 27, just an entry-level computer programmer making $70,000 a year. My life was simple and calm, and now, suddenly, I'm a millionaire, and my family hates me for it. They didn't have to say anything. I could see it in their faces. Even my mom looked disappointed. I felt a pang of guilt. I knew my family expected to get something from Grandma Laura, and now it's all in my hands. I never wanted to come between my family and what they thought was their share, and I didn't understand why Grandma Laura made this choice. Sure, I spent a lot of time with her, maybe a little more than others, but everyone knew I was her favorite grandchild. Still, that shouldn't outweigh her love for her own kids. I haven't even been a perfect granddaughter. I just visited her a few times each week. As the shock wore off, the tension in the room grew worse. My family's anger reached a boiling point, and they started accusing me of tricking Grandma Laura into changing her will. Their words cut deep. I tried to explain that I had no idea what was in the will and that Grandma Laura's decision was her own, but they wouldn't listen. The room felt toxic and I felt attacked from all sides. My own family, people I had loved my whole life, were now blaming me, doubting my honesty, and tearing apart my relationship with Grandma Laura. It was a nightmare, and I felt completely helpless. Everyone was shouting at me, and I could see the poor lawyer looked like she wanted to escape. Even my sister yelled, saying I took advantage of Grandma Laura's illness to make her leave me everything. Of course, I didn't do that, but nothing I said could make them believe me. Uncle Larry was red with anger, even though he's the one who needs it the least. his family is wealthy. I tried to hold back my tears, but they came anyway. The fact that my own family, people I grew up with, even my mom, were so quick to think the worst of me hurt more than I can explain. In that moment, I felt completely alone and abandoned. I don't think I've ever felt this terrible before, not even when I heard about Grandma Laura's death. I'm overwhelmed by this inheritance that I never asked for and by the way my family turned against me afterward. Any happiness about the inheritance has been crushed by the pain of losing my family's love and support. As the accusations and yelling went on, I just couldn't take it anymore. The pain was too much, so I ran to my car, barely able to see through my tears, and locked myself inside. I felt trapped, broken, and like I couldn't breathe. Sitting here in my car, I'm crying harder than I ever have. I'm not only mourning Grandma's loss but also the broken relationship with my family. The thought of being at odds with them is unbearable, and I don't know how to make sense of it. This inheritance, which should have been a blessing, feels like a curse. It's brought out the worst in my family, and the fallout is worse than I ever imagined. I'm still trying to process everything, seeking legal advice to figure out the inheritance, but the emotional weight of this is much harder than anything else. This whole experience has been a painful lesson on how money and inheritance can bring out the darkest sides of people, even within a family. As I sit here and write this, I'm filled with sadness and heartbreak. I never wanted to be on bad terms with my family, and knowing our relationship might never be the same just crushes me. I'm trying to take time to grieve, to heal, and to find a way to honor Grandma's memory despite all the chaos. Right now, I'm in my car, sitting in a Taco Bell parking lot, writing this to you. I needed to get far away from the lawyer's office, but I knew I couldn't go home, so here I am eating my feelings. The poor kid at the drive-thru looked like he might call the cops on the crying lady ordering a double cheeseburger. I know my family's probably at my apartment, banging on the door, which is why I didn't go back. I feel terrible for my roommate, who's probably dealing with all of it without any idea why there are 40 people yelling at her. She's going to think I've joined the mafia or something. I really don't know what to do now. Everything feels so wrong. Normally, I'd ask Grandma Laura for advice in a situation like this. But she's gone, and she's the one who put me in this position. I just don't know what to do. Update 3. Hey everyone, it's been a few weeks since my last post, and I know many people have been wondering what's happened. I'm sorry for disappearing, but I really lost it for a while. I hope you understand. I wish I could say things have gotten better, but unfortunately, it's been a wild ride. After the reading of Grandma Laura's will, my family's reaction was worse than I could have expected. They accused me of tricking Grandma and stealing their inheritance, and things only got worse from there. After driving around, I ended up going a few hours out of town, just trying to escape everything. I've been hiding out in motels, avoiding my family's anger and all the accusations. I haven't been doing much, just avoiding my phone because the texts and calls haven't stopped. Mostly, I've been watching bad daytime TV to pass the time and eating way too much junk food. I had to use my savings just to pay for the motel, which nearly made me cry. But then I remembered I'm rich now, and I laughed like a maniac. The guy at the check-in desk must have thought I was crazy. Just when I thought things were calming down and maybe I could go back home to talk things out, the cops showed up at my motel. Yes, the police. My family actually reported me for theft, saying I'd taken their money and run. I couldn't believe it. The police handcuffed me and told me about the accusations. My family claimed I stole their inheritance and ran off, which isn't true at all. I hadn't taken a penny, it's all still in Grandma's trust as far as I know. I tried to explain that Grandma Laura left me the estate in her will, but the cops were skeptical. My family had convinced them I was some kind of mastermind thief. It was a nightmare come true, and I felt so helpless. Thankfully, I managed to convince them to let me call my lawyer, who handled Grandma's will. It felt like forever, but she eventually arrived and helped me out. I was just sitting in the back of a police car, handcuffed. It took a lot of begging to get the officers to let me call my lawyer. Usually, when you ask the cops if you can call a lawyer, they don't love the idea. But when my lawyer arrived, she explained to them that the estate was legally mine, left to me by Grandma herself, it wasn't stolen. After a long talk, the police finally let me go, but they warned me to stay away from my family and avoid any contact until things are legally settled. They seemed annoyed, not at me, but probably at my family for wasting police time and making them look foolish. It was heartbreaking to realize my own family would go so far to ruin my name and accuse me of something I didn't do. This whole thing has left me completely drained. I never thought inheriting money could bring so much pain and trouble. That was just yesterday, and I'm still at the motel, trying to deal with the betrayal and false accusations. The legal fight over Grandma's estate is ongoing, and it's taking a huge toll on me. Once happy memories of family gatherings now feel distant and spoiled. I'm dealing with a deep sense of loss, and on top of that, I'm furious. I'm so mad it feels like my blood's boiling. How dare they call the cops on me, their own family, instead of stopping to wonder why Grandma left everything to me? They decided I must have tricked her. They didn't stop to think that maybe she noticed I was the one helping her to the bathroom when her nurse was off duty. Or that I was the one who stayed on her couch for 5 days when she found out she was sick, just to be there for her when no one else would. In an earlier update, I downplayed how much time I spent with Grandma Laura to make my family look better, which I now realize was foolish. None of you would have judged me, and they're never going to read this. But it's true that they only visited Grandma Laura maybe once a week, if that. I was there almost every single day. I changed her diapers when her own kids kept making excuses. Of course she left her money to me. I was the one doing the work her family should have done. During these weeks at the motel, I've been thinking about my options, and I've almost made up my mind. I was going to split the money equally with everyone because I thought it was only fair. But now, they're not getting a single dime. If Grandma Laura wanted me to have the money, then so be it. They can fight over the house and jewelry all they want. I don't care. I want to thank everyone here who's supported me with your kind words and advice. Your encouragement has really helped me through this tough time. I'm just focusing on getting legal advice, staying strong, and standing up for myself. I talked to my lawyer, and she said the will is airtight. Grandma Laura made sure there were no loopholes, so nobody can challenge it. I love her so much and I miss her every day. There's an emptiness without her, but I'm going to honor her wishes no matter what. Update 4, final update. Hi everyone, here's the update you've been waiting for. After the false accusations and betrayal from my family, the legal battle over Grandma Laura's estate continued, but I finally won. My uncles, who falsely accused me of theft and wasted police time, were actually arrested for filing a false report. It felt like a small but real victory. I knew the cops were angry about the false report, but I didn't expect this outcome. Still, I think it was justice. But it didn't end there. My family actually had the nerve to come to me for help. They wanted me to use my inheritance to bail my uncles out of jail. I was shocked at their audacity. After all the pain and trouble they caused me, they had the nerve to ask me for money. I almost laughed in their faces, though it wouldn't have been a friendly laugh, so I kept it to myself. I refused. I've had enough of their fake behavior, their greed, and their lack of trust. I've realized that my family's actions are beyond forgiveness. Their greed, manipulation, and betrayal are too much to overlook. There's no way I'm giving them a single cent of my inheritance, which was legally left to me in the will. They tried to make things right by apologizing and reaching out, but I was done. I'd lost all trust in them. I didn't even want to see my mom. She hadn't stood up for me when they tried to get me arrested, so I don't owe her anything. Now, I've made a big decision. I'm taking my inheritance, packing up my things, and moving to a new state, far from this toxic family. I've already blocked their numbers and cut all ties. It wasn't an easy choice, but it was necessary for my well-being and peace of mind. I'm going to live my life for myself now, not for them. As I write this final update, I feel a mix of emotions, sadness, anger, but also hope. It's been a wild ride, and I've learned a lot about family, trust, and resilience. I want to thank everyone here for being there for me during this tough time. Your support meant everything. To anyone going through something similar, my advice is to stand up for yourself, seek legal help, and surround yourself with people who truly care. Cutting ties with family isn't easy, but toxic relationships are harmful, no matter who they're with. Remember, you deserve respect, love, and happiness. For me, I'm looking forward to a future filled with new opportunities and good experiences. I'm determined to use my inheritance wisely and build a better life for myself. The path ahead may be uncertain, but I'm ready to face it with courage. Thank you for being a part of this journey. This is my last update, but I'll always be grateful for the support I received here. When I felt completely alone, you all saved me. And to anyone reading, it's clear from many comments that family drama like this happens all the time, with people sharing similar experiences. Thank you again for everything. Hey, I know someone who got about 99% of the inheritance, and it ended up tearing their family apart. So, if you've ever been through something similar or dealt with inheritance drama, feel free to share your story in the comments because it seems like this happens a lot. My name is Revenge Online, and I narrate stories every day. If you're into that kind of thing or just want to pass the time, check out our stories on the channel to see what we're sharing today. Hope you all have an amazing day, and I'll catch you in the next one.
To my dear granddaughter Laura, I leave our house by the lake and $200,000. That gift from my grandparents changed everything. It opened a new chapter in my life, but it also made me finally see the truth, that my idea of a loving family was just an illusion. My name is Laura Bailey. Since I was a child, I was always compared to my older sister. She did well in school, played sports, and made our parents proud. I was clumsy and always seemed to be in her shadow. At home, whatever my sister wanted always came first. My thoughts and opinions didn't matter. Whether it was about what we had for dinner, where we went on the weekend, or even what we talked about, everything revolved around her. After a while, I started to think, maybe it doesn't matter if I'm here or not. The only place that ever felt safe and warm was my grandparents' house. No matter what I said, they always listened closely. Whether I shared something small from school or talked about how hard gym class was, they made me feel like every word was important. My grandmother would make tea with a kind smile, and my grandfather would proudly frame my messy drawings and hang them on the wall, saying, "It's wonderful." Their home was like a different world. The garden had flowers blooming in every season, and the living room was always full of soft, warm sunlight. No one compared me to anyone there. I didn't have to act a certain way or hide who I was. It was the only place where I could truly relax and feel loved just for being me. When bad things happened at school, I would rush to my grandparents' house. It was the only place where time felt calm and quiet, and where I felt like I belonged. When I opened the front door, the sweet smell of my grandma's freshly baked cookies always welcomed me. My grandpa would put down his newspaper, open his arms wide, and say, "Welcome." I can't explain how much those simple words meant to me. As I got older, I visited them less often, but the warmth and love I felt in their home always stayed with me. My parents never stopped comparing me to my sister, but my grandparents always made me feel like I was enough just as I was. That feeling quietly gave me strength. When I told my parents I wanted to go to university, they immediately said no. "We need the money for Emma's wedding," they told me. Just like that, my dream of going to university was pushed aside. All their attention went to planning a big, fancy wedding. The wedding was held at a top hotel, with expensive food and desserts. Emma's dress was custom-made, and everything looked like a scene from a movie. Meanwhile, my hopes for school were ignored. But I didn't give up. I took out student loans and started studying on my own. My parents didn't help me with money, but I told myself it was okay. I knew the wedding was a special day for my sister. My grandparents came to the wedding too. They had always cared about me, and I think they noticed the quiet tension that day. My grandmother walked over to my table and gently asked, "How's university going, Laura?" Her voice was full of love and care. I was a bit surprised, but I smiled and answered, "I'm studying hard. I want to work for a big marketing company one day." She smiled back at me, though I could see something deeper in her eyes. "That's wonderful. I'm really proud of how hard you're working," she said. Her kindness touched me deeply, and in that moment, some of the anger I felt toward my parents faded just a little. My grandfather had been listening too. He added warmly, "If you're ever struggling, don't be afraid to ask us for help. We'll always be here for you.
Just focus on being happy.
We'll help you reach your goals." Those words comforted me more than I can say. Even though the wedding was big and fancy, it was my grandparents' simple, loving words that stayed in my heart. I made a strong promise to myself. Even though my sister had always been the favorite, I decided I would create my own path. It didn't matter how hard it was or how little support I got from others. I promised to believe in myself and keep going. My grandparents' words gave me the strength I needed. No matter what path I took or how long it took, I was determined to chase my dreams. Everything changed the summer before my second year of college. "Laura," my grandma's voice came softly through the phone. "Frank, your grandpa had a heart attack in his study. The doctors couldn't save him." Her voice broke into quiet sobs. I don't even remember the drive to the hospital. All I remember is the heavy sadness that hit me when I walked into the room and saw that he was already gone. Grandma was sitting beside him, holding his hand tightly. I gently placed my hand on her shoulder and leaned against her. Her small body shook, and I could feel how deep her sadness was. We sat in silence, just holding on to each other. To Grandma, Grandpa wasn't just a husband. He was her closest friend.
They had lived their whole life side by side.
Losing him left a huge empty space in her heart. When I looked at her, I could see all the love they had shared over the years and the deep pain of knowing he was gone. I held her hand tightly and silently promised to be there for her, no matter what. But just 1 month after Grandpa passed, Grandma passed away too. It was so sudden, it felt unreal, like she followed him to heaven. I couldn't accept it. They meant everything to me. They were the only ones who always supported me, who believed in me. I could still hear Grandma's kind words and Grandpa's strong encouragement in my mind. Knowing I would never hear their voices again broke my heart. I felt completely lost and empty. A week after we buried Grandma Heather next to Grandpa Frank, we gathered in the lawyer's office. Mr. Nathan, their lawyer for many years, adjusted his glasses and opened a large folder. He began to read from their will. To our beloved granddaughter Laura, Mr. Nathan said clearly, we leave our lake house at 5,721 the village at Horsepen and savings totaling $200,000. I heard Emma gasp and saw her shiny lips open in shock. My mom grabbed my dad's arms so tightly that her knuckles turned white. Mr. Nathan straightened his tie and kept reading. He said, there's also a personal message from Frank Caprio to his daughter, Olivia. He looked straight at my mom and read, Olivia, we are not leaving anything to you or Emma. This is our final decision. When you said you were having money problems and planning Emma's wedding, we gave you $250,000. We respected your needs back then. Now, we ask that you respect our choice. My mom jumped to her feet, her face red with anger. This is unacceptable, she yelled, slamming her hand on the table. We're family. It's wrong to give everything to Laura. There must be some mistake. I object. This should be reviewed again. Mr. Nathan calmly took off his glasses and sighed. Mrs. Olivia, this is a legal will. We must follow the wishes of the people who passed away. My mom kept trying to argue, but I stayed quiet. Inside, I felt so many emotions all at once, but I didn't say a word. My grandparents' wishes meant more to me than anything. When Mr. Nathan finished and packed up his papers, my parents left angrily. But when I walked outside to the parking lot, they were waiting for me. Sweet Laura, my mom said in a fake sweet voice I had never heard before. I stopped, too tired to hide how I felt. She looked at me with a soft smile and said, this isn't the best place to talk. Can we go somewhere private? My dad and Emma stood quietly behind her. After a short pause, I nodded. We went into a nearby cafe. As soon as we sat down, my mom got straight to the point. Laura, the lake house you inherited, it means a lot to all of us, doesn't it? She said with a gentle smile, but her eyes looked sharp and calculating. She took a small sip of coffee and added, if you're open to selling the house, I know a great real estate agent. You could get a really good price for it and you'd have a lot of money in hand. It's a smart choice, don't you think? I didn't answer. I just stayed silent. I had no plans to sell the house, but I stayed quiet. I wanted to see what they would say next. Right away, Dad spoke up. Laura, owning a house costs a lot. Taxes, repairs. It's a big responsibility, especially for someone young like you. Emma quickly added, you're not actually going to live out there, are you? It would make more sense to sell it and use the money for something better. Her voice was soft, but I could tell she was trying to rush me into agreeing. They were all trying to sound calm and kind, but I could see what they were really doing. They weren't happy that my grandparents had left everything to me, and now they were trying to talk me into selling the house so they could get something out of it. Mom reached across the table, lightly touching my hand. Laura, we're family. Let's help each other, she whispered sweetly. I pulled my hand back. A cold, firm feeling began to grow inside me. That house wasn't just property. It was the place where I had first felt true love. It held memories that money could never replace. I took a deep breath and calmly said, I'm sorry. I'm not selling the house. Mom's face froze. Dad and Emma looked stunned. I stood up, pushing my chair back. I want to honor what Grandpa and Grandma left me. Along with that house, I said. And with that, I walked out of the cafe. A warm feeling spread in my chest. For the first time, I had stood up to my family and made a choice on my own. I felt proud. After that, I graduated from university and got a job at the marketing company I had dreamed of. At first, the work felt strange and new, but with help from kind coworkers, I slowly gained confidence. I felt so happy every time one of my ideas became real. I was busy, but satisfied with my life. I also moved into my own apartment. It was small, but I had picked it and decorated it myself. It gave me a special kind of peace. After work, I'd play music I liked and make myself a cup of coffee. That became my favorite way to relax. Since that day at the cafe, I've barely spoken to my parents or sister. At first, we exchanged a few awkward messages, but over time, I stopped reaching out. Months passed without a single word. Sometimes I did feel a little lonely, but more than that, I felt strong. I was finally living my life the way I wanted. I was free to choose, to grow, and to live without anyone controlling me. That quiet, peaceful life helped heal my heart. One day, I got a call from my mother. "Laura, would you join us for dinner this Sunday?" she asked. Something in her voice felt different. My gut told me it might be a setup, but my curiosity got the better of me. Driving into the driveway of my childhood home felt like stepping back in time. The house had changed a lot, and not in a good way. The once beautiful colonial house now looked old and forgotten. The paint was peeling, the gutters were hanging loose, and the neat lawn my father once took pride in was now full of weeds and dry patches. Inside, the house felt small, but it was surprisingly clean. Emma's 5-year-old twins, Jacob and Ryan, were running wild through the living room. "Laura." My mother hugged me tightly, her excitement catching me off guard. "We made your favorite pot roast with those little red potatoes you love." I froze in her arms. It hit me all at once. "That's not my favorite," I said before I could stop myself. "That's Emma's. I've always liked grilled salmon." A heavy silence filled the room. My father broke it by clearing his throat. "What is your favorite food?" he asked, looking genuinely curious. We should know these things. To my surprise, they really seemed to want to know. During dinner, they asked lots of questions about my job on Old Manchester St, my apartment in Richmond, even what I did on weekends. They even listened when I explained what derivatives trading was, though I could tell they didn't fully understand it. As dessert was served, my father spoke again. "We're expecting a lot of relatives for Thanksgiving this year. We'd like to have it in a bigger house. I've been looking for a place to rent, but no luck so far." I stayed quiet, thinking about the villa I had inherited from my grandparents. It was big, peaceful, surrounded by nature, perfect for a family gathering. A part of me thought maybe this was a chance to visit that house again, to feel close to my grandparents. Then my mom looked at me, her voice soft. "Would you be willing to let us use the villa?" I hesitated. That place meant a lot to me. It held so many special memories. I wasn't sure if it was right to let them use it so easily. Sensing my hesitation, Emma quickly jumped in. "I'd love to take the kids to the villa," she said cheerfully. "It would be so great for them to play in the fresh air." She smiled brightly, looking hopeful. I felt a mix of emotions. The villa was filled with memories of love, peace, and my grandparents. I wasn't sure if I wanted Emma and her kids treating it like just any other place. But then I thought about what my grandparents would have done. I was sure they would have smiled and watched the children running around with joy. Holding that thought in my heart, I slowly nodded and said, "Sure, let's all have a nice time together." And just like that, it was decided we would have the Thanksgiving party at my villa. On Thanksgiving Day, I drove to the vacation home my grandparents had left me. I felt a little nervous but also excited. I had made sure to arrive early at the time my parents told me. I was looking forward to seeing my relatives after so long. But more than that, I was happy everyone would be gathering at the cottage filled with my childhood memories. The place reminded me of my grandparents, their love, kindness, and warmth. I imagined them watching over us, smiling as we laughed and spent time together. That thought made me smile as I drove. I could already picture the children running around in the yard and everyone enjoying dinner together. It made my heart feel full. Not long ago, I wasn't sure if I wanted to share this home with my family. But now, I felt at peace. Letting them enjoy the cottage felt like the best way to honor my grandparents. I truly believed that. However, something felt strange the moment I opened the front door. The house was quiet. I looked around and saw dirty plates and cups stacked up, stains on the tablecloth, and signs that the party had already happened, without me. It was clear everyone had already left. Confused and hurt, I walked deeper into the house. From the back room, I heard laughter. I peeked in and saw my parents sitting comfortably on the sofa, talking and relaxing. Then I heard my mom laugh and say, "Good thing she owns a big house. We'll let her clean it up." My dad chuckled and agreed. I stood there, frozen. A cold feeling crept over me. I had shared this special place because I wanted to help my family, but now I felt like nothing more than the person who owned the house. A deep, painful loneliness filled my chest, and with it came quiet anger. At that moment, I made a decision. I thought about confronting my parents right then and there, but I already felt ignored. It didn't seem like they would care. So instead, I picked up my phone and called the police. Not because I thought it would fix everything right away, but because I needed someone to know what had happened. But I knew I had to do something to stand up for myself. When the police arrived, an argument quickly started between me and my parents. "Why did you call the police?" my dad asked angrily as he walked toward me. "This house belongs to me. I inherited it. You had no right to be here without my permission," I said firmly. "Trespassing? We're family," my mom replied loudly. "You told us we could use the house." "I didn't give you permission to treat me like this," I snapped. "I'm tired of you only acting like family when it's convenient. This house is very special to me." Tears filled my eyes as I shouted. Then one of the officers stepped in between us and said, "Please calm down. This is a family issue, so we can't treat it as a criminal case." I bit my lip. It felt like no one really cared about how hurt or angry I was. Even after the police left, my parents didn't apologize. "You're making a big deal over nothing," my mother said, rolling her eyes. That's when I made up my mind.
"Fine. I'll take you to court," I said.
"We'll settle this properly." My parents looked shocked, but I didn't back down. I couldn't let them keep walking all over something that meant so much to me. So I took legal action and filed a civil lawsuit. I reached out to Mr. Nathan, the lawyer who had helped my grandparents for many years. He had always been reliable, and I knew I could trust him. He listened carefully and then said, "Even though they are your parents, your legal rights must be protected." His words gave me a huge sense of relief. Getting ready for the case was hard. I had to collect a lot of documents, proof of ownership, records of conversations with my parents, and details about how they used the house. It was a lot of work, but I didn't give up. This wasn't just about the house, it was about protecting my dignity. On the day of the trial, I stood in court and told my story clearly and calmly. I didn't let my emotions take over. I just shared the facts. My parents looked nervous but still tried to defend themselves, saying they hadn't done anything wrong. A few weeks later, the court gave its decision. The court recognizes the plaintiff's claims. The judge said, the defendants must stop using the property and pay damages. I quietly closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Finally, my voice had been heard and respected. After the court ruling, my parents and Emma started texting and calling me often. At first, they sent short messages saying, "Sorry." Then the messages turned into requests. "Please, just meet with us once." I didn't reply to any of their messages or calls. Still, they didn't stop trying. One day, after I came home from work, I saw my mother standing in front of my apartment door. She looked tired and was holding a small paper bag. "Welcome home," she said, sounding unsure. I kept my hand on the door handle and looked at her without saying anything. "Please, just listen for a moment," she said, almost begging. I let out a sigh and stayed at the door, agreeing to hear her out. "We're truly sorry for everything. The way we hurt you, and the whole thing with the villa. Please forgive us. We're still family, aren't we?" I shook my head slowly. I can't forgive you. Ever since I was a child, I've always been the one who was hurt in this family. You only treat me like family when it's convenient for you. Tears filled her eyes, but I didn't change my expression. Then she said in a soft voice, "Your father's company went bankrupt. He's drowning in debt. Can you help us?" I took a deep breath and spoke clearly.
No.
I don't see you as my family anymore. My mother stared at me, shocked. Then she lowered her head and walked away without another word. I went inside and immediately called Mr. Nathan. "So she came to see you in person, huh?" he said calmly. "Then it's time to apply for a restraining order. You need to protect your peace and safety." I nodded. "Yes, please." So I decided to turn to the law again to protect my life. Even though they were my blood relatives, I had no choice but to stay away from the people who hurt me. After the restraining order was approved, my parents received the official court notice in the mail. They were shocked and upset. They told other family members and friends, complaining about me and what I had done. But for me, nothing had changed. I still believed I made the right choice. Later, I heard from relatives that things kept getting worse for my parents and Emma. After his company failed, my father couldn't find another job. He was always stressed about paying back debts. Because of his proud and rude behavior, he lost many of his friends too. My mother, worried about his situation, became mentally tired and unhappy. Their home life fell apart more and more each day. Emma, busy raising her twins, was also struggling. Her relationship with her husband became tense, and she was worn out from taking care of the kids. Money was tight, and she worked hard just to cover their school costs and daily needs. My sister used to depend a lot on our parents. Now that they couldn't support her anymore, her life became even harder. I heard she tried to contact me too, but since I kept my distance, her stress only grew, and our family bond became weaker. My parents and sister were now facing the results of their past actions. Even though they felt sorry, they couldn't fix what had happened, and their lives kept getting worse. The feeling of being a family slowly faded. Each of them felt alone, struggling with worry, regret, and sadness. They were just trying to get through each day. After completely cutting ties with my parents and sister, I put all my focus on work. Every time I completed a project, I felt myself growing stronger and more confident. After work, I liked to sit in a quiet cafe. It helped me relax and clear my mind. I also started meeting new people and making friends, which gave me the emotional support I needed. On weekends, I would visit the villa my grandparents left me. It was in a peaceful mountain area. That house was full of warm memories, and it was the place where my grandparents had loved me deeply. Thinking about their smiles and kindness made me feel surrounded by their love. In those quiet moments, I could feel my old pain slowly healing. Sometimes I thought about the past, but instead of feeling sad, I forgave myself and felt stronger each time. I was no longer tied to my past or the family that had hurt me. I had made a choice to move forward and live my own life. Then one day, I realized something important. What I truly wanted to protect wasn't my family or old memories. It was my own happiness and the future I was going to create. The loud screeching of tires on the road was the last thing I expected to hear as I stood outside my home. In an instant, everything changed. Before I knew it, I was lying on the ground, my body aching all over, groceries scattered around me. I had been hit by a car, and as I tried to understand what just happened, I looked up and saw who was driving the car. It was my mother-in-law, Janet. Later, in the hospital, I lay in bed, sore and bruised. The phone rang, and it was my husband, Adam. His voice was tense and anxious. "Kelly, you need to tell the police you just fell," he said quickly. "They're saying someone saw Mom hit you with the car."
Can you believe that?
His words shocked me. Not only had Janet run me over, but now Adam and his parents were trying to cover it up. Listening to Adam's excuses, my mind drifted back to the early days of our marriage. I remembered when Adam and I first met. We had worked at the same office, where he was assigned to mentor me. Adam wasn't exactly charming, but he was steady and attentive, and over time, he won me over. Our relationship seemed like a fairy tale in the beginning. After our wedding, I quit my job and moved into his parents' home, something I soon regretted. Living with Janet and her husband Tyler was a constant struggle. Janet had a sharp tongue and loved reminding me of my duties as a wife. "You should be grateful to Adam," she would say with a tone that felt more insulting than kind. "You're living a comfortable life because of him." Tyler, though quieter than Janet, would often make me feel small with his outdated ideas about women. My relationship with Adam began to crumble as he sided more and more with his parents. Whenever I tried to talk to him about how I felt, he would brush me off. "They're old," he would say dismissively. "You need to be more understanding." As time went by, our dreams of having children started to fade, which only added more strain to our marriage. Janet and Tyler constantly pressured us about having grandchildren, but Adam seemed completely uninterested. He was absorbed in his own world, leaving me to deal with his parents' constant remarks. My only comfort during these tough times came from my neighbor, Diane, and her husband, Jeremy. Diane had gone through her own struggles and understood what I was going through. She became my friend and a source of support, someone who knew the truth behind the perfect image of my marriage. Lying in the hospital bed, I thought about all of this as Adam's voice brought me back to the present. "Kelly, you need to do this for us, for the family," he pleaded, trying to convince me to lie about what had happened. But something inside me had changed. I could no longer be the submissive wife, constantly bending to their demands. They had crossed a line, and I knew I couldn't just let it go this time. I hung up the phone, feeling a new sense of determination. They needed to face the consequences of their actions. I was ready to fight back. This wasn't just about me anymore, it was about standing up against the unfairness that had ruled my life for far too long. Lying in the quiet hospital room, my mind was racing. I felt pain not just from my injuries but from the betrayal by the people I once considered family. As the sunlight streamed in through the window, casting long shadows on the floor, Diane walked in. Her face was full of concern. She sat down next to me and asked gently, "Kelly, how are you feeling?" I tried to smile and replied, "I've been better." Then I asked her, "What did the police say?" Diane's face turned serious. "At first, they believed the story that it was just an accidental fall," she said. "But I told them what I saw. I saw Janet driving out of the garage like a bat out of hell, and then I found you on the ground." Hearing this, I clenched my fists, anger boiling inside me. Adam wanted me to lie to protect his family. Diane reached out and held my hand tightly. "You can't let them get away with this, Kelly," she said. "This isn't just about the accident. It's about years of control and manipulation. This is your chance to finally break free." Her words struck a chord. For years, I had put up with Janet's rude comments and Tyler's dismissive attitude. Adam had always been passive, never standing up for me, always letting his parents say and do as they pleased. I realized I had been stuck in a cycle of control and humiliation, always trying to stay strong, but it was exhausting. As Diane and I continued talking, a plan began to take shape in my mind, a plan not just to get justice, but to finally stand up for myself. I decided it was time Janet and her family faced the consequences of their actions. The next day, a police officer came to take my statement. I told him everything: the accident, the pain, the betrayal, and how Adam begged me to cover it up. The officer listened carefully, taking notes. When I finished, he looked at me seriously and said, "We have enough to bring them in for questioning. We'll investigate further, but your statement is very important." Hearing this gave me a sense of power. This wasn't just about a legal process. It felt like the first step in taking back control of my life. Over the next few days, my determination grew stronger. Diane visited regularly, keeping me updated on the investigation. She told me how the community was rallying around me, offering support, and expressing their outrage at what Janet had done. Jeremy, her husband, was reviewing their security camera footage, hoping it had captured something that could help. Knowing that we might have evidence sparked a small hope in me. If we could prove Janet hit me on purpose, it would be undeniable proof of what they had done. Each day, my body grew stronger, but it was the hope for justice that truly gave me strength. I was finally on the path to freedom. I was no longer the quiet, suffering woman who stayed silent in the shadows. I was now a woman ready to stand up, ready to fight back, and determined to reveal the truth about the people who had hurt me for so long. The small room in the police station felt colder than ever as I waited for the dentist. My hands were shaking, not out of fear, but from a mix of anger and anticipation. Finally, the door opened, and Dennis Ritchie entered, his face serious. "We reviewed the footage from your neighbor's security camera," he said, placing a file on the table in front of me. "It clearly shows Janet's car hitting you. It's unmistakable." A wave of relief washed over me. But with that relief came a burning desire for justice. "What happens now?" I asked, my voice steady. "We're bringing them in for questioning today, your husband too. They'll have to answer for what they did," Dennis Ritchie replied. I left the police station with a plan forming in my mind. It wasn't enough just to expose what they had done. They needed to understand the full weight of their actions. Later that day, Diane called with an update. "The police just took Janet, Tyler, and Adam in for questioning," she told me. "Everyone in the neighborhood is talking about it. They can't believe what Janet did." News spread quickly, filling people with shock and anger toward a family they once respected. For me, it felt like the years of silent suffering were finally being recognized. That night, lying in my hospital bed, I imagined Janet's face when she was finally forced to face what she had done. This once powerful, intimidating woman was now cornered by her own actions. I had imagined this moment many times in my head, and each time, it felt like a small victory. But it wasn't just Janet who had betrayed me. Adam's betrayal hurt even more. He had chosen to side with his parents over me, over honesty and decency. He had to see how deeply his choice had affected me. A few days later, I was discharged from the hospital. My body was still sore, but my spirit was strong. Diane and Jeremy were there waiting for me, their faces filled with concern and determination. "Kelly, we're with you in this," Jeremy said firmly. "Whatever you need." "Thank you," I replied, feeling a deep sense of support that I hadn't felt in years. That evening, as I sat in Diane's living room, we turned on the news. The story of my accident and the investigation had made the local headlines. The screen showed images of Janet, Tyler, and Adam. Their faces were now public, their reputations ruined. It was a strange feeling to see them like that, people who had once controlled and belittled me now exposed for what they had done. For the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of freedom and power. I knew this was just the beginning, but I was ready for whatever came next. It was finally time for me to reclaim my life. My private pain had now become a public spectacle, but I felt no sympathy for them. This was the beginning of their downfall, a downfall they had caused themselves. The air in the interrogation room was thick with tension as Janet, Tyler, and Adam sat across from me. Their faces showed a mix of fear, anger, and disbelief. Dennis Ritchie sat by my side, his presence a steady reminder that justice was at work. "You all understand why you're here," Dennis Ritchie said, looking directly at them. "The evidence is clear. Janet, you hit Kelly with your car and then drove off without stopping. Tyler, you saw what happened and chose to stay silent. And Adam, you tried to cover it all up." Janet's face stayed defiant, but I could see a hint of fear in her eyes. She spoke, her voice trembling slightly. "It was an accident. I never meant to hit her." Tyler said nothing, his eyes glued to the table. Adam looked embarrassed and guilty, his face turning red. Finally, he spoke up, his voice shaky. "Mom, why didn't you just stop? Why did you run?" It seemed he was just now realizing how serious this all was. I looked at them, feeling no pity. After all the years of mistreatment, my heart had hardened. "You could have killed me, Janet. And all you cared about was saving yourselves," I said firmly. Janet's tough front broke, and tears began to roll down her face. "I was scared. I panicked," she sobbed. Tyler finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "We were wrong. We never should have lied," he admitted. Dennis Ritchie then turned to Adam. "And you, Adam, you tried to twist the story and even asked your wife to lie for you. How do you explain that?" Adam looked down, his words coming out softly. I don't know. I wanted to protect my parents. I felt a mix of disgust and sadness for Adam. He had chosen to side with his parents over the truth and over me, his own wife. You didn't just betray me, Adam, I said, my voice calm but strong. You betrayed everything we ever had. Dennis Ritchie nodded, his face serious. Each of you will face charges for your actions. This is a serious matter. As we left the room, I felt a sense of closure. They had finally been exposed for who they truly were. Janet, hiding behind her tears, was revealed as a coward. Tyler, though silent, was just as guilty for standing by and letting it all happen. And Adam, a man so blinded by loyalty to his parents that he had lost sight of what was right. Stepping out of the police station, the world outside felt different. For the first time in years, I felt free. I had faced them, spoken my truth, and now I could start to move on. The weight I had carried for so long had finally lifted, and I was ready to start a new chapter of my life. I had faced my past, and now it was time to create my future. The air felt fresher, the sky seemed wider, and I was free from the heavy grip of Janet and Adam's control. Diane and Jeremy were waiting for me outside, their faces showing both concern and pride. You were amazing in there, Diane said warmly. Thank you, I replied, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for their constant support. In the weeks that followed, the legal proceedings against Janet, Tyler, and Adam began. The news of their charges spread through our community, stirring up mixed reactions. Some people were shocked, while others expressed disappointment. But for me, this was proof that my struggles had finally been seen and understood. During this time, I stayed with Diane and Jeremy. They gave me not just a place to stay, but a warm, caring environment where I could begin to heal. Their kindness was a sharp contrast to the years of cold treatment I had endured with Adam and his family. One evening, as we sat together in Diane's living room, Jeremy shared some news. The prosecutor's office called. Janet and Tyler are facing serious charges. Adam, too, for trying to cover it all up. I nodded, feeling a mix of satisfaction and sadness. They were finally being held accountable for their actions. What about you, Kelly? Diane asked gently. What will you do now? I took a deep breath, feeling clearer than I had in a long time. I'm filing for divorce. I can't stay with someone who chose his parents over me, especially in a situation like this. Diane reached over and squeezed my hand, her support unspoken but deeply felt. The divorce went through quickly, partly because of Adam's guilt and the strong evidence against him. I received a fair settlement, a small price for the years of emotional pain I had endured. With this settlement, I decided to start fresh. I rented a small apartment, modest, but entirely my own. It was my space, a place where I could rebuild my life on my own terms. Diane and Jeremy were by my side as I began this new chapter. Jeremy, who owned a small business, offered me a job. You've got great skills and experience, Kelly. We'd be lucky to have you, he said sincerely. I accepted his offer, excited to take back my independence and step into a world I had been shut out of for so long. Starting this job felt like rediscovering myself. I found parts of me that had been buried under years of unhappiness. I was no longer just Adam's wife. I was Kelly, a woman with strength and identity. As the weeks passed, I settled into my new life. I felt a peace and purpose that I hadn't felt in years. Working alongside Diane and Jeremy helped me realize my own worth and capability. Months went by, and the day of the final verdict in Janet and Tyler's case finally arrived. I knew this moment would add a true end to that painful chapter, allowing me to fully embrace my new beginning. Sitting in the courtroom, I felt a sense of closure. Across the room, Janet, Tyler, and Adam sat, their faces filled with worry and regret. The judge's voice echoed through the quiet room. In light of the evidence, this court finds Janet and Tyler Gill guilty of hit and run and obstruction of justice. Adam Gill is found guilty of aiding in the cover-up. As the judge announced their sentences, a low murmur filled the room. Janet and Tyler were sentenced to prison, while Adam received community service and probation. Their faces fell as they realized the seriousness of their punishment. After the verdict, I stepped outside the courthouse, feeling the warmth of the sun on my face. Diane and Jeremy joined me, their presence a reminder of the support that had helped me through this tough time. "Justice has been served," Diane said with relief in her voice. "Yes, but at a cost," I replied, thinking about the years of pain and loss I had endured to reach this point. News of the sentencing quickly spread. Janet, who was once respected in the community, was now a convicted criminal. Tyler, her silent accomplice, faced the same fate. And Adam, my former husband, was seen as someone who had betrayed his own wife to protect his dishonest parents. In the weeks that followed, I felt a change within myself. The heavy weight of my past slowly started to lift, replaced by a growing sense of freedom and strength. My life, once controlled by Janet and Adam, was now mine to shape. Working at Jeremy's company gave me a fresh start, with new challenges and joys. I thrived in this supportive environment, feeling my confidence grow day by day. Diane, always by my side, encouraged me to fully embrace this new chapter. The biggest surprise, though, came when I least expected it. At a company event, I met William, a friend of Jeremy's. He was kind, respectful, and saw me for who I truly was, not just for my past. Our friendship grew naturally, and in time, it turned into something more. Within a year, we were married in a simple, intimate ceremony. It was a celebration of new beginnings and healing. William knew everything about my past, the pain and betrayal I had faced. Instead of it being a burden, it brought us closer. As I stood beside William, looking into his kind eyes, I felt like I was finally where I was meant to be. My life had changed in ways I never imagined. I was no longer the woman who had suffered in silence. I had overcome my struggles, found true love, and started a life filled with respect, trust, and peace. Standing there with William, surrounded by friends like Diane and Jeremy, I felt grateful for my journey. I had turned my pain into strength, and my future was now bright and filled with hope. I realized this was what a real partnership looked like, built on respect, support, and understanding. It was everything my marriage to Adam had lacked. A year had passed since the trial, and life had settled into a peaceful rhythm. William and I had moved into a cozy home, a place that truly felt like ours. The painful memories of my time with Janet, Tyler, and Adam were slowly fading, replaced by the love and joy that filled my life now. One evening, William and I sat on the porch, watching the sun set. He turned to me with a warm smile and said, "You know, Kelly, I admire your strength. What you went through is so hard, yet here you are, stronger and happier." I leaned against him, feeling the comfort of his arms. "I couldn't have done it without friends like Diane and Jeremy, and especially without you," I replied, my heart full of gratitude. Our conversation drifted to the future, to dreams and plans we hadn't yet explored. The pain and drama of the past no longer held me back. They had become stepping stones that had led me to this peaceful moment. From time to time, I would hear news about Janet, Tyler, and Adam. Janet and Tyler were serving their sentences, facing the consequences of their actions every day. Adam, however, struggled to rebuild his life. His betrayal was known by the community, leaving him isolated and filled with regret. Although I had moved on, there was a part of me that felt a bit of satisfaction knowing they faced the results of their choices. They had caused me pain, and now they had to deal with the karma of their actions. As I reflected on my journey, I saw how much I had changed. I had gone from a woman who was controlled and hurt by others to someone who stood up for herself, fought for justice, and took back her life. Now, surrounded by love and support, I felt ready for whatever the future held. The challenges and heartaches of my past had shaped me, but they didn't define who I was. I was Kelly, a survivor, a woman who had found happiness despite the odds. My past would always be a part of me, but it was the story of my present and future that truly mattered. It was a story I was excited to write, a story of love, resilience, and newfound joy. I was no longer just someone who had been wronged. I was a woman who had reclaimed her life, embraced love, and looked forward to the future with hope. With William by my side and friends who truly cared about me, I knew that whatever came next, I would face it with strength and happiness. This was my new chapter, and I was ready to make the most of it.